Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Lizard Brains podcast. I'm your host, DJ Alessandrini. I'm joined by my co-host, Tom McGorman. Tom, how's it going? Oh. Yep, now we can't. Too many buttons.
Thanks for giving me the power to speak, DJ. Host DJ.
We're in a restaurant, and we're doing a little homage to Dinner with Racers, and we're here with... he got a start in sim racing, much like a lot of us. He built his skills over years in front of a computer, but it was not driving, so to say, though I'm sure he built some of those skills in front of a computer as well. It was commentating and broadcasting, and all of that was built over sim racing. We got Kyle Heyer today. Kyle, how's it going?
It's going great, guys. How are you guys?
I'm doing great now that the podcast machine is working. It was not doing the things that it should do, and now it randomly fixed itself, which is never like the greatest sign. But
I love self-clearancing problems.
But they normally show back up.
That's a time for another day.
Okay.
I drove a long way to be here, DJ. Better work.
Yeah.
Well,
do you think the Dinner with Racers guys ever sat down in the restaurant and just went, it doesn't work? They go, no.
And we flew to Atlanta.
Shit. Well, I mean, we were about to just have food, so.
We do have food. Sorry if there's any chewing noises. But Kyle, how's it going?
It's going well. I'm on my drive home back to Rochester, New York. I live in Chicago now. And this is the second time in like 3 or 4 weeks I've done this 9-hour drive.
Ooh.
And I have a cat in the car currently.
Can't you just work remote?
I would love to. And that's a whole other thing. But I have a cat in the car. The car is on. He is nice and warm and cozy. I bring him back on the longer trip so he's not by himself.
What's your cat's name?
His name is Apollo.
Apollo. Okay, I thought it was Aro for some reason.
He's a little orange tabby. He's 2.5 years old. He has a fatal disease called FELV, but we love him. Yeah. Yep. I didn't know when I got him. It just happens.
Sure.
So,
those happen, fatal diseases.
They do.
Yeah. Well, sorry to hear about that, Kyle. Well, what's not to start the podcast off on a dark note, but what's the life expectancy?
It is anywhere between 2 to 7 years. He's 2.5. He's kind of got the best case scenario. It's like a immunodeficiency based disease that basically gives you leukemia, and it's transmittable through bodily fluids and stuff, so he can't be around other cats. But he's doing pretty well. He gets a blood test every 6 months. I think I'll get maybe 5 out of him if I'm lucky, so we'll see.
I'm glad the cat didn't come to my house then, Kyle.
No, well, I wasn't going to let it free. It was going to stay in the carrier, just not in a car in a parking lot. But
how does traveling with a pet work for you? I want a pet so bad, but I'm more of a dog person.
Dogs would be really hard.
Yeah, that'd be really tough.
So the cat is easy because they can do 12, 13 hours in a carrier, no problem. Mm-hmm. And you don't have to worry about them. And once you can get him in the carrier, it's fine.
Does he travel to races with you?
No. So during the year, I'll get a cat sitter, and they'll check in once on him daily. But on long trips, I had Laguna and Indy back to back this year for Grid Life and SRO, and that's too long, I think, to have one cat sitter because it makes me feel bad. So I have 2 cat sitters that don't know about each other.
Oh, I was going to ask.
And so it'll be one for the first 5 days and another one for the next 5 days.
It's like a Spider-Man meme when they meet each other. Hey, What are you doing here?
I always joke it's like the beginning of a Hallmark movie. They're going to secretly fall in love with each other. Because one's a guy and one's a girl. They're the same age.
A Hallmark movie. It's going to end up on Netflix.
Yeah.
You're like a cat matchmaker.
Pretty much. Yeah.
I love it.
That's actually pretty funny. Wait, so how does it work? Is it every other day?
Every day they come in. It doesn't really matter that much what time, but they just feed him. He's got a little pill he has to take.
Wait, so are they double feeding him for 2 weeks or whatever?
No, they come in I do one for they check in once a day for 5 days straight, and then it's the next stint is someone else.
Oh, okay. Because I'm thinking if it's you're only paying them to check in on the cat once a day for 2 weeks, or this poor cat is just neglected into the. But meanwhile, you just have an army of cat sitters coming over, entertaining the cat.
Plus, it's a cat. He'd be all right, thanks.
Yeah,
whatever.
Cats are pretty chill being on her own. So.
Our cats get stressed if nobody's around. When Christine leaves and she goes on a work trip and then I'm at home, they're they stop eating as much. They're they're whining at the door. They're
Pablo
a
eats
little bit
more.
of a mess.
He eats more when I'm gone.
Maybe you stress him out, Kyle.
Maybe I do.
So I would assume that most of our listeners are going to at least have either heard a race you've broadcasted, been in a race you broadcasted, or raced against you in sim racing. But for those who don't know, do you want to tell us what you do full-time now?
Yeah. So my full-time job is I am the motorsports experience manager at Grid Life, which I think in the public context means that,
Did you pick that name or?
well, my original title was motorsports technologist or something, which
Yeah,
like
I
didn't
remember-
mean
yeah, I
anything.
remember
It was
that
a
one.
made-up name. It was that, so I like begged for something that actually meant a thing. And announcing is only one of the things that I do, so we had to pick something more general. But that's the most public thing that I do is I announce the broadcast for Grid Life, and I also do a lot of the work on the graphics and the run a show and kind of plan out how the broadcasts look and feel. And then on the day-to-day, it's like a lot of administrative stuff. I do all the point standings, the car decals, the trophies, like all that stuff kind of runs through me. So
Down in the trenches of the group chats.
well, not anymore.
No, good for you. High five. Hell yeah.
Yeah, that was oh, sorry, that was not the best thing for me.
Tom got out of the group chat.
I'm out
Yeah,
too.
yeah. It is wild in there, but it's only one of the things I do. The other, I do announcing for other organizations as well. I work with GT World Challenge America, thanks to Tom, which I'm sure we'll get into, but I've worked there now for 5 years as well in a variety of different roles. Most lately, it's been public address announcing. I've done a little bit of broadcast work over there.
What is public address announcing? All this sounds made up.
So public address is like when you're on the PA at the racetrack. Like you're not going out to the internet or out to the world. You're just talking to the speakers, to the fans that are there.
Are you going to end up in iRacing at some point?
I would
Because
love to.
they're adding PA. And
The
they're
background of whatever
Yeah, yeah.
voice you want.
and they're no. They're adding PA like broadcast, like paddock broadcasting into iRacing, and you can hear it in the background. Like you know how Assetto Corsa Competizione has that.
Yeah.
And
So if
it's Ryan Marine also.
Yes.
Which I was super jealous. He didn't even know that was happening.
Oh, that's actually pretty legit. Hold on, we're gonna pause because we're ordering food. All right, we have ordered food. What were we talking about?
We were talking about what Kyle does at the trackside broadcast in
Oh,
eventually in iRacing.
yeah. So, because they're adding that in, and you can vaguely hear, and I have all the ambient sounds turned down, so I don't really like hear.
Can we make a mod of your voice to replace the sound
That'd be
files
so
in the game?
dope.
You might be able to, Kevin.
We know a guy.
We got to be able to do that. You know how you can
Kev-
change Siri?
I still want a Austin Cobb spotter pack.
Hell yeah, brother.
How hard is it to do laps?
Yeah, like you know how the if you get like enough incident points, eventually the spotter will come over the thing and just be like, "Well, there, you gotta stay on the track" or something like that. I want Austin to be like, "Can we just do laps?" Like, I think that'd be hilarious.
That'd be so good. Oh man. Yeah, but I mean, I guess the other stuff that I do, again, GT World Challenge I mentioned, but still do a lot of esports work for both, well, really primarily for GT World Challenge through the GR Cup series as well, which I announced the broadcast for.
Did that wrap?
That did, and they're going to do it again.
Who won?
Gresham
Polasek,
Wagner?
Michael Polasek. Oh, you mean the real one, the real series?
No. I'm talking about the fake one. I don't care.
Oh,
about,
I don't know.
I don't care about
I didn't
real
know there was a
racing,
fake one.
Tom.
Okay, well, I'm going to take the headset off. I'll be back in a minute. No.
The Michael Polasek won the fake one.
Okay.
And then Gresham Wagner won the real one. So Tom was correct.
Yeah, great job, Tom.
I mean, it wasn't really a huge leap to guess that Gresham Wagner won.
I think it's...
Did he just kind of run away with it? I
yes.
thought he had a bunch of penalties and stuff in the beginning of the.
That was last year.
That was last
And
year.
it
Okay.
cost him the championship.
Yeah.
Bummer.
He got that out of his system.
Yeah.
I think it's crazy every time I turn that series on and I hear you because I don't know. I still don't have it in my brain that I'm going to. It's the same thing when I commentate the runoffs. Someone will send a clip of the runoffs in a group chat and I turn it on. It's my voice. Like, oh, that's weird. But when I turn on like GR Cup and it's you, it feels right. But at the same time, like, oh my God, it's Kyle.
You know what's really cool is I got to the opportunity this year to replace Ryan Marine when he was out doing Formula E. So I spent the entire weekend in VIR in June basically playing Ryan's role. I got to work alongside Calvin Fish and Amanda Busick and got to do all the series that weekend, GR Cup and GT World Challenge and GT4 and all that. And that was super fun. Really, really scary. That's a very, because it wasn't like I was going to jump in and Calvin was going to lead everything. Obviously, we know Calvin Fish is thank you very much. He's a great talent. He's been around for a long time. But, you know, it was like, oh, you're jumping in now you're leading him. And it's like, I don't know what I'm doing. You know, like it was so scary. But then I got to do the 8 hour with both those guys. It was so fun.
So, I mean, the jump into real racing from iRacing probably felt similar to that jump, right? But then you're doing it and you're like, oh yeah, like we're cool, right? Did you have the same? Was it the same kind of? Now you don't have the same tools that you do in real life.
Yeah, I think I had that experience with the 8 hour more than I did at VIR. I think because the 8 hour, I had Ryan and Calvin were both there and I was the third voice in, where at VIR I had to like be Ryan. And being Ryan is really hard. Ryan Marine is one of the best prepped motorsports announcers on the planet. his notebook is 600 pages thick. There's no way that you can show up and do his job.
Yeah,
his way,
yeah.
Right? When I went to the 8 hour, it was like, all right, I'm not going to show up with 40 years experience driving like Calvin. I'm not going to show up with a 600 page notebook because why would I even try? Like Ryan already has that.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm just going to show up and I'm going to facilitate conversation because I can do that. And so it was, that was how I fit. And it was so much easier. And I think, the result of the weekend at Indy was like, oh, that's how Kyle fits in. It's like, maybe not Kyle doesn't lead it or Kyle isn't the color, but like Kyle's certainly a good like middleman between Calvin and Ryan.
I find it's always a little weird with 3 commentators though, because it's really easy to step on each other. You almost have to like take breaks.
If you can't see each other, it's really hard. And you've probably had experience with that too at some point, I imagine.
He's pointing at Tom.
Yeah, well,
Sorry, we're not on video.
add to this very point. No, when we used to live together and commentate, it was so much smoother. Or when DJ and I record this in person or when we can see each other, it's so much smoother. But also what I found in those professional jobs is there's way more of a kind of rhythm to who speaks when, and you also you hear them throw by name to who's supposed to speak next or who they want to prompt. So that's, I think part of the reason those guys do it for so long and so well is they understand that, right?
Yeah, and you'd kind of throw up a finger too. Like if you had a point to bring up, you kind of raise a finger and they would acknowledge it. So there was a
Which
flow.
finger?
Yeah.
Depends on who's
Right.
And they might not let you talk
what's so funny
depending
is
on
like
the finger.
the amount of banter that happens too. Like just even in the post-race celebrations, like we were kind of giggling and laughing, and we were all like collectively holding our mute buttons because we were laughing so hard. It was like just stuff like that. People can't see us; we're not on camera at SRO, so it's just really fun to have those moments too. When no one knows that you're all giggling and laughing, or someone cracked a joke that probably shouldn't have said on air, and it's really good.
And then it's like silent for a couple seconds, and just know as the audience that they're all laughing.
something in the booth is going awry.
There was Sebastian Boos is a European SRO driver who was running in the 8 hour, and he hit the left right chicane at Indy, the 5-6 chicane. He hit the curb and jumped it, and I said I had just talked about how he was like driving like a rocket, right? And then he jumps this curb, and Ryan, without hesitation, goes air boost, and I was like. I was dying. And you have to be a little bit of an aviation nerd to get that, but I thought it was really good.
I like it.
Yeah.
So that's what you do. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna steer the conversation to like the beginning of Kyle. So what I'm curious, and I think our listeners would be curious, is so you did this you started off doing this for like beer money in college, right? Essentially.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't really my idea either. That's the thing that I don't think a lot of people knew. Yeah, so I had a roommate, Finian DeCuna is his name, and Finian. Hi, Finian. He'll probably listen to this. And he was big into iRacing, and as was I. We kind of bonded over racing. That's how we ended up as roommates. And he was reading Reddit one night, and he had just started to get back into iRacing. He had just brought his wheel to our college dorm, and he was reading a Reddit post about this racing league that wanted a broadcaster. And he's like, "This sounds cool. Like we should try doing this." And I was like, "That's dumb. Like this is stupid. Why would we want to ever do that?" And he kind of was like, "Oh, okay." And he came back to it. And he tried convincing me, wouldn't it be so cool?
What was your holdup on it?
I just I don't know. I just felt like I didn't even know where to start. I wanted to drive at the time. I wanted to just race iRacing. I didn't really care.
Yeah,
about
you wanted to be
else.
a race car
And
driver.
I never even considered announcing any. I never even once considered it. But I was like, all right, fine. So we gave it a go, and I downloaded a bunch of software. I looked into how to do overlays and stuff. And
where did you look for that information? Because when was this? 17?
2018.
2018.
Yeah.
Bing.
Google existed, Tom.
No, I mean, I think I just Googled iRacing broadcasting, where to start. And there was a bunch of different softwares I looked at. Really what we were going to do first was just do not even a live race. We were going to commentate off a replay, and if it sucked, we would not air it. and guess what? It did suck.
Did you air it?
We did air it. Good. And I think it is still on the channel, which is SimTV. And it's really bad, and it's actually catastrophically bad. And
so hold on.
Go ahead.
So when me and Tom, when we started the podcast, we were trying to figure out all these details and stuff, and at some point, we realized we just have to start, and we'll get better as we do it.
Yeah.
But you were dragging your feet to even do it.
Yeah.
So that's different. Me and Tom both really wanted to get this thing to work. And quickly we realized that we weren't going to be able to figure out the details unless we knew what the details were, right?
I was going to get paid $15. I was excited.
$15. That's where Kyle started. That's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, we were so excited about it. Like after we did it, we're like, oh, that felt odd. Like I think looking back, it was terrible. But in the moment, we're like, that's pretty good, right?
Yeah.
And the
You're
client,
like, we made $15 in one night.
and the series was like, you guys are the best. You guys are great. Let's do it again. And I was like, really?
You're like, that's the positive encouragement that we needed. So I was in preparation for this. I checked out some of the early WDCR broadcasts that you did.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
And like the microphones weren't like fully figured out. Nope. But here's the thing that I noticed, and I'm curious how many races you broadcast before you came to broadcast the WDCR SCCA League, which is where I met you.
Wasn't a lot.
So because you're finding the action on the racetrack was already like super stellar, and I would argue that like you're a great talky voice. But I would argue...
Good talky man.
Yeah, you're a great talky man. But I would argue your ability to to create a story with the battles that you're finding and the pacing that you're picking those different battles is literally the thing that you're the best at.
It's interesting that you say that, and maybe we should come back to that later when we talk, if we get back to more real-world work stuff, because that has come up, actually, on the SRO side as something that... Richard Hay, who used to be the lead producer at SRO's global broadcast center, he's been working with SRO in America for a while, and he's noticed that about me too. And so that's actually going to be pivoting some of the things I'm doing there next year, which I'm really excited about. So we can talk more about that later. But
I have two questions about this like early time.
Yeah.
At the time, were you already doing any or much sim racing? Because you also love flight sims and train sims and other stuff.
I just built a desktop. I always wanted to build like a gaming computer, and I just did in college.
Nerd.
So it was like, I like had just had this brand new desktop. I was like playing GTA. I didn't have a wheel, so I was like, all right, I'm going to download iRacing and just like mess around on an Xbox controller.
Yeah.
While Finian had his wheel. And I spent a lot of time in Miatas and running the Ford FR500.
World record holder.
Yes, still.
Is it still?
Because it can't be broken because it's the old configuration of Watkins Glen that is gone now. Yes.
You'll take that one to your grave.
Yeah. I got my iRating up to like 3,500 on the Xbox controller.
Kyle Heyer lived to 101 years old. iRacing Watkins Glen Mustang record holder.
With the lap time on it, everything. I love it.
Yep.
Okay, so you were learning iRacing pretty similarly on the timeline you were learning broadcasting.
Hold on. Did you get that world record on a controller?
Yes.
No way.
Thank you. I
That's
did.
wild.
iRacing used to be way different. Thank you very much. Yes, please.
It was different back then, but it was only because it was I don't know. Yes, please.
We're getting cheese on our food.
Thank you. That's probably good. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Yep, we're good.
Awesome. True dinner with racer style.
Yeah, it is.
What was I saying? I lost my train of thought. Oh, Xbox controller record.
Yeah.
I just the only cars that you can like effectively do that well with are cars that have really
Slow
steering
Ratios? Okay.
So anything that's like really notchy or has a quick ratio like a GT3 car is really hard to be, to modulate the steering. I think the tire model was in a very different place, so I didn't overheat the tires as bad.
Yeah. The tire model's more slippy, slidey now.
Yeah, so I don't think it'd be as easy now, but I honestly had trouble when I finally got like a G29 or whatever, that like the next summer, and I had trouble getting back up to speed because it was like, what is this? This is a weird way to interact with a car, right?
Yeah, I had the same thing when I went from a controller to a wheel. Anyway, sorry, Tom, I interrupted.
No, that was so. I was going to ask a different question about this timing too, but no, because you've also done some real life circle track commentary. When did that happen in time? You said you used to do like a little speedway near you when you were. Was this before or
after? I almost did.
Oh,
so this was during right before the pandemic. Would have been early 2020. I'd already kind of explored grid life a little bit. I had done a couple events. And I was just looking for things to do, like places to go do more real world commentary. Mm-hmm. And at the time, it didn't seem really reasonable to like fly to every grid life or do whatever. So I was like looking at local dirt tracks in my area to see if there was if they needed a commentator for the summer.
I missed it. What year was this?
This is 2020, like
Okay.
January.
Okay. So yeah, before
This is like 2 years in on you're
Yeah.
already doing the sim stuff.
yeah.
Yep.
So at this point, you're thinking, can I do this for real?
Yeah, and so I called up. I can't remember what track it. I think it was. It wasn't Canandaigua Speedway. It was a smaller one.
But you the first time you commentated in real life was in 2019.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
The first ever real event I did was Grid Life Midwest in 2019.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay.
And I think we should also get to the point. We'll circle back to it, but how I ended up there and how I ended up at SRO, because both of you are relevant in both of these stories. But yeah, the circle track thing didn't happen because I was supposed to like go drive down and meet the guy that like decided that. But it was like the week before the pandemic hit, and then it hit, and I never emailed him back. I see. So,
Womp.
yeah. So it could have been a different life.
They were probably still running races, Kyle.
Yeah, I could be doing World Outlaws right now.
So you didn't really know any of this like broadcasting stuff. You taught yourself with Finian in your college dorm, but you're, to your credit, also like a walking encyclopedia of motorsports knowledge. You're like big NASCAR fan though, right?
Yeah. I mean, I grew up as a NASCAR fan. I would like watch a little bit of IndyCar and a lot of Grand Am. Like that was the road racing side that got me interested. So I absorbed a lot of knowledge, and I always really enjoyed the technical presenters like Larry McReynolds, who would always get into the weeds on how the car was driving or like why it was doing a certain thing. Calvin Fish on the Grand Am side was always a very technical guy. So I always really appreciated that. And so it felt like an easy thing to talk about. I think there was probably times when I was wrong, but as you drive more in the simulator, like there are things that differ from the sim to the real world, but you can understand both perspectives and how they might relate to the real world or how they don't.
Yeah.
So that was the foundation was just, I mean, that's how I started, was basically like emulating the people who I love listening to. Mm-hmm. You already had that built in as a kid for years and years and years. Like, oh, if I do like what Larry does and I do what Calvin does.
Yeah. I mean, I think like the sound that I like wanted to have was Mike Joy.
Okay.
Like I really like Mike Joy's presentation style, but I always appreciated like the knowledge that guys like Larry had. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of where I absorbed it from. But I always wanted to be, what's the call from when Dale Sr. finally won the 500? 20 years of trying, 20 years of frustration. Dale Earnhardt,
it's good.
It's really good, right? Like that's you always want to have those.
For those wondering who Mike Joy is, I pulled up. Oh, hold on, it's not going through the.
Is he the goofy one that makes mistakes all the time?
No, that was Darrell Waltrip.
He's the guy that says
No.
He might be goofy now.
No, not Darrell. I know Darrell Waltrip's always been goofy. Who's the one that like has a notorious? He like mixes words up. One of the and he like says bloopers all the time.
Currently,
just one of the famous NASCAR announcers.
Goes for a spin. Trouble right here. Out of the fourth turn. One car goes
right. This is Mike Joy.
Is
that Mike Joy?
So what you just pulled up there, the trouble. I really like that, and I have kind of stolen that, and I don't even feel bad.
Do you say trouble?
I do. Well, I try to.
Yeah.
It's
You
a thing I like.
thief.
Well, okay. So, RG Bargy, not Calvin's. I asked him about it.
Oh, I forget where did that come from. Yeah. Go ahead.
I don't remember the story.
I don't either. Shoot.
I have to ask him again, but. I was eating dinner with him at Sebring one time, and I asked him about that. He goes, "Oh no, I stole that from somebody."
I love it.
Yeah.
I was going to ask about the watching driving and learning from it versus now you've driven on track in real life and you have way more exposure to real driving. What did you not know? What did you get? No, let's start simpler. What did you watch and what did you feel like you could learn from watching driving, both in sim and real life? And then what were you surprised by when you actually got in a real car?
I think the thing that that's an interesting question, actually. I think one of the things that iRacing does better than any other game, or any other simulator, sorry, that's trigger word.
Guys, DJ's eyes shot up.
Watch yourself.
Is the way that the cars move on the surface and the way that like it interpolates the movement of the car between like when it receives input from where the car actually is. So you get a pretty good understanding of like when you're watching the yaw of the car, how it's being pitched into the corner, when it's diving on the brakes. Like
you're saying watching third person.
Yeah. You get a good understanding of like the dynamics that are going into the load transfer and the weight transfer. And that was something that I picked up on pretty quickly, especially when we were doing like cars like Miatas, for example. It's super easy car to like watch move around.
Yeah.
And so, I've always been a pretty mechanically interested person, like mechanically interesting. Like the
mechanics of Kyle's movement is
for example,
unparalleled.
when I learned to drive stick, for example, like I never stalled when I was learning because I had like dove into the mechanics and I tried to understand like what was happening. with the clutch. Like,
Sure.
what was the pedal doing? What is the clutch doing? What is a clutch, right? So I did the same thing with racing, where it's like, before I have ever stepped foot in a car to drive for real, it was like, I know everything that I should be experiencing from the outside. So like, how do I make it feel like that? Like, how do I, like, when I go to the brakes, like, you pitch the thing on the brakes, you have to, trail brake off to get the car to rotate in. And it's like, you kind of understand.
That is the most ass backwards way to learn how to drive a car.
Correct. And like, to be fair, I don't have that much experience driving, but that was like my approach to it.
But you are fast, and especially in Sims anyway. I don't think I've ever seen you run a lap time in real life, like
Not that fast.
with a timer.
I
But
have.
Yeah.
but
You have? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Anyway, you're fast in Sim, and
There was some videos that Grid Life was doing in like the Hyundais where like Kyle was like driving around on the
Okay.
track.
So I have a confession about the Watkins Glen video that I don't even think ever made to air.
Okay, so
That was fast, and it was not okay. When I watched that video back,
were you like almost crashing?
yes, and I think it was only like 8 seconds off of like the fastest Elantra N that ran in street class that weekend with like proper tires and brakes. And
Yeah,
we
yeah.
had 3 people in the car. It was myself, Greg Creamer, and Creature.
How are they trusting you? Was Greg scared?
Yes, and I had an out, a flyer, and an in at a track I'd driven at like 40 miles an hour before. I'd never driven there at speed.
yeah.
We did 127 into the bus stop, like into the braking zone, which is like not slow for a car with 3
No,
people
that's pretty
in
quick,
it.
yeah.
And when I watched that video back, I was like,
Who got the rear seat?
you have like
Creature.
helmets and stuff.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
But Creature's seatbelt usage might have been a little lackluster.
What? The rear seat, it's like every turn
Well,
he
he
ends
was-
up on either the left or the right side of the car.
He was
so-
sitting. He was trying to sit in the middle, but like the lap belt wasn't holding. And so the moment that he had was like we came out of turn 11 at the Glen, where like you've got that big rumble strip, and then there's the wall.
Yeah.
And we got up onto the rumble strip, and Creature like made a sound.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It was like he like made like an eep because we got up, and it like right up onto the curb, and he was not expecting me to get that close to the wall.
That's the moment Kyle's like, I should be doing this instead.
When I watched that video back, I was like, this was reckless. Like I only felt comfortable because it was a track I had done millions of laps on
Yeah.
in the sim, but I should not have been.
I mean, did you feel scared when you were driving?
no.
Should you have?
Yes.
Okay.
Interesting.
Well, because like, here's the thing: is like,
If I was by myself, no. But I had 2 other people in the car.
okay,
They didn't
all
have a
right,
choice
that-
whether or not they wanted to be there.
That is a different perspective. Like they weren't necessarily signing up for what you did.
Correct. Well,
Yeah.
they were signing up on the assumption that I would keep everybody safe. And to be honest, I don't know if I knew how to do that.
I think everyone made it through.
We all lived. It
You're
was
all fine.
Have you told them about this before, or is this literally going to be the way they find out?
No, I think they've heard about this in some way or another. But you know what's funny is, as I told Gary Cummings, who was our race control liaison for the weekend, I was doing an out, a flyer, and an in. But he, I guess, only heard the out and the in. So like I blew by the pit lane entry, and he hits me up on the radio. Kyle, I thought you were pitting in this time, and I had to like get on the radio like while I was braking into turn 1. I was like, this is such a mess.
This is the flyer.
Yeah. I had something similar what happened with a job with a series I'm not going to name, but at the end of the day they wanted a camera crew to follow one of the cars from the series around the track, like third person chase cam, so that you would just get a visual of the line around the entire track. And I was the pace car driver for the weekend, so I was in the car, fast supercar car. But we only do like 20, 25 miles an hour so the drone can keep up. And as the drone director is in the car with me, pilot's behind in a van flying the drone. We get to pit in at Mosport, and he goes, director in the car, I think Tom's going to miss the pit in. We'll see you guys in a minute. We're in a supercar that's not mine. After that track's cold, no flaggers, no helmets. And, excuse me, and I don't have permission to do this, other than the director, who I'm like basically leased to as the pace car driver, telling me to do it. And he's like, all right, go. So I literally do like a hot lap of Mosport in this car with no helmets, way faster than we should be going. But I'm like at least aware of my driving enough to not fuck it up.
Well, that's the difference between you and me.
We both all survived, but then the camera guy wanted to do it, and then the next guy wanted to do it. And I still have no clue to this day if I had permission to be on track. We were not wearing helmets or doing anything safe for sure, but you get to do these fun little things after for the jobs. I was going to ask about something else. From that
you know
time.
what makes it even more fun is that like people are like, "Ooh, me next, me next, me next." Yeah, like that's a cool feeling.
I'm like, I still don't know if I'm allowed, but if I get yelled at, it's your fault.
Nobody told me no yet.
Yeah.
There's nobody to give you a black flag if there's no flaggers.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's fair game if you don't get a black
Okay,
flag.
so a similar situation probably could have happened to me if I was a little more reckless at Lime Rock one year. But thankfully I figured out at 20 miles an hour, not 120 miles an hour, that they put a chain across the racetrack before the pit, right after the pit in, so you can't like complete a full lap. But it's like not like painted a color; it's just like a silver chain. So you can
Wait,
around
like across the track?
across the track. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there was like a cone or something there, but like I came down the hill and I was like, oh, if I was doing 100, this would suck.
Oh, Jesus.
So
That's sketchy.
yeah,
I had a friend, Dave Santel. You guys all know Dave, I think, from sim racing at least.
Yep.
Clotheslined himself in a go-kart because there was some similar thing where there was some things across between garbage cans and like a fairgrounds.
Dave should be dead.
And he didn't see that there was like a ratchet strap or whatever it was, and he drove straight into it and it like caught him in the neck and everything. He had to come to a stop. It's very scary.
That is scary.
yeah, no fun.
I had another question about this time and I forget. So when
Well, we were
I was
talking
going to do
about
the example with the way the cars move and the way that you're learning about. To me, if you're like a sim person and you've watched the difference in like Assetto Corsa Competizione versus iRacing, you can tell that drastically because the cars in Assetto Corsa just kind of like, I don't know if you're allowed to say negative things about this, but I'm going to.
Here,
so.
I will. They just exist in the space on the
Right,
track.
they're like they're like following the trajectory. They drive okay, but then when you watch them back, the way the cars look don't make sense.
It's like
Doesn't make
it's
sense.
like everything's pivoting like in the center of the car.
Exactly. Versus iRacing, it has 4 points of contact on the ground
Yes.
instead of 1, and you can like see it.
Yeah.
Interesting. So you became a better driver because you watched iRacing.
I don't think I was a driver at all before I did iRacing. So
And, well, Kyle, like you're like over 3,000 I rating or whatever, which is like far above average. Like average is like 1,400 or whatever. So you're probably like in the, I don't know, top 15, 10% of people.
it might be different now, but the last time I looked, it was like top 5 or 6%.
Yeah.
But that was, again, I haven't driven in official races in a really long time.
Yeah.
I put thousands of hours into iRacing. Like I've been doing this for 7 years, right? So thousands of hours. And I would say that it might be hundreds that I've spent actually driving.
Yeah.
The rest of it has all been watching other people drive.
Well,
right?
I would say that you've obviously learned something from watching because, like just the time spent actually driving, you're way faster than you actually probably should be. So you've definitely learned from watching other people drive. So back to Tom's original question, when you finally did get out on a track for real and you spun that little red Miata.
Okay, that wasn't even the first. I would like to make the point that when I spun out the Miata, that was the second time I drove it.
Okay.
The first time I drove it was at Road America.
Right. I forgot about that.
And it
It's a red one.
and it was a red one, and I was really excited because it had a roll cage and it was like a real race car, right?
Yeah.
And it was Ben Harisco's car. I don't remember if they had a nickname for it or anything. But he basically offered the car. He's like, "Hey, if you want to do the HPD
That's
beginner
so
program,
cool that he offered you that.
yeah, no, not a single.
That was your first time on a racetrack.
first time driving at speed on a racetrack
Yeah.
ever. Road America in a roll caged race car, right? Like this was super cool. First time I'd ever driven
So
stick
cool.
at speed too. Like I didn't have a manual transmission car. I knew how to do it roughly, but I never like heel toe downshift.
I was going to say, how did the heel toes go, or did you just jam
first
it
time
into
into
gear?
turn 5, gave it a shot and it worked.
Okay. Hey, I racing.
It wasn't
Just
the
gotta
most,
go for it.
It wasn't the most flawless thing ever, but it went into
But
gear.
you didn't like money shift it,
No.
lock the rears, and then fly into a wall, which like is the other thing that could have happened.
I never missed a shift in that car. But yeah, it was the first experience was Road America, which I was grateful for because that was another track I had lots of laps on in the sim. And it was like I remember like pulling out of pit lane and being like, oh, I feel like I've been here a million times, which is so cool. Like I had that moment where I was like, oh, the simulator like actually prepped me for this.
Yeah.
Because I would be terrified if I didn't know where I was going. Like I knew where all the corner stations were.
You knew the references.
I knew the references, the curbing, like I knew where everything was going to be. And so I didn't have to worry about where the track went. I could just focus on braking and downshift. So accelerating is not very exciting in that car. So, but like
it barely did
I
that.
did like 115 on the back straight, which like wasn't terrible. Like that car
and it
dynoed
took-
at like 84 horsepower.
and it
a
took you
couple
about
weeks later.
45 seconds to do that back straight.
But I remember like I locked up in the rain. I locked up the brakes going into turn 3, and I remember like what that felt like, and I was like, oh, I know exactly what's happening. I like
Wait, was it raining the first time you took it out there?
not the first session, but like the second or third one.
Okay.
And I like locked up the brakes, and I never had the experience before, but like it was like almost automatic. It like wasn't like a panic. It was just like, oh, I just lift my foot a little bit and it unlocked, and it was fine. And it was such a crazy, like I started to understand like where the threshold of like where the grip was, and it just made a lot of sense, right?
Yeah.
So that whole experience went really well, and I was so overconfident that the same
You were on the leading edge of the Dunning-Kruger
Yeah.
curve. Yep. Okay.
that he offered it to me again at Gingerman a couple weeks later. And I was so stoked. I was like, oh, yeah, like this track's easy in comparison to Road America. Like, what could possibly go wrong? So I put the thing in first gear, roll out of pit lane, and like at the left curve out of the pit lane, I like hammered down the throttle.
Yep. All
and
84 horsepower.
vroom, and spun out. And this is like when Midwest was in the fall. So there's like people.
Yeah, there's like 10,000 people lining the track.
Like lots of people. And I remember being so embarrassed. And I rolled back down pit lane, and Ryan Christoph is standing there. He's like, do you want to try that again? And he gave me my silly goose patch, which I still have.
Oh, that's so funny.
But in hindsight, like what was so cool about that, I'd never spun out a manual transmission car before, but I didn't stall it. I knew, like, I didn't even think about it, just 2 feet in, and I didn't kill the car. And I thought that was like, when I thought back later, I was like, that's really cool.
Yeah.
That like in this panic scenario.
I'm thinking of the first time I spun a manual car, and I definitely, like, the timing chain rolled backwards. It wouldn't start. Like, it was a mess.
Like I was so proud of myself for that.
You're like, I even spun correctly.
Because I was one of those people that would like use the clutch properly in iRacing, like before it actually like did what clutches do. And so like I felt like I like trained myself to like do the proper thing, and it paid off in that scenario.
Okay, so what, like, the first time you went out on the racetrack, what was there had to have been something that was different than what was on sim or watching?
For me, it was the noise.
The noise is a big one.
Okay.
And I think also like rearward visibility in a car like I wasn't super familiar with.
Yeah.
That car, the Miata had like one of those like NASCAR style rear view mirrors where it had like a bunch of different lenses and things. And I was trying to like understand what I was seeing, because I'd like see a car in 3 places and they're all different sizes. So it's like I don't know like which one of these I'm supposed to trust.
Did it have like one of those wink mirrors?
It was
where
just
it's like the mirror that shoots off in every which direction.
It's kind of like 5 panes that are like tiered and
Oh, I hate those mirrors,
Yeah.
dude. I hate those mirrors. That Katil has one of those.
Yeah.
And Derek Yarbrough had one of those too when I drove his car at Coda, and I just found like it was like the third from the left. I'm like, cool, that's my mirror. All these other mirrors are noise. Like,
Can we take these? Yeah.
So I think what solved that for me was when I drove my FRS for the first time on track, which is at Blackhawk Farms. It was the first time I'd driven a car that was like my car, that I was comfortable in on the racetrack. Mm-hmm. It solved the visibility problem. It solved like the driver comfort problem. I felt very much like I was at home in that car because I kind of knew it better. And so I still feel more comfortable in that car.
So noise, rearward visibility.
Yeah.
Was that basically it? Everything else, you're like, I don't know, this kind of feels.
Getting like oversteer, I still am not super comfortable with, because I haven't, like, I had my little panic experience where I spun out, and since then I've never spun out again, which is probably not good, because I was like in a safe environment where like I've done tracked at Gingerman a bunch of times. Like I should have and could have taken the FRS like to a higher limit and experience what it was like to like slide around a little bit more.
Sure.
And I'm just like really afraid of like in turn 2, I had a big slide one time in the FRS, and it was like, oh crap. And I caught it, but it was like not comfortable at all. And I would really like to get to the point where I can like not panic about that, or like get to 7, 8, and 9 and feel more comfortable.
How do we get Kyle to some autocross events?
I was going to say a drift car, but either way,
Well,
just a space to get away with. I'm bummed you weren't at pit race, because he was Andy and Pete and Dakota were just like throwing keys around to the drift cars on the skid pad on our Thursday.
Yeah.
I think you hadn't either come in yet or you were working.
I hadn't come in yet, yeah.
Because once you get used to like how the car's moving around underneath you, and you're like, oh yeah, this is fine.
Well, I rode with Pete that weekend on the big track.
Yeah.
And he and Andy like crashed like hard.
I heard.
And
that's not normally how it goes.
Drift hard. They still drove off.
It was the hardest impact I've ever experienced in a, like I was in the passenger seat, like, and Andy, like they just kind of
and there was no damage, right? Like hardly any damage.
Oh no.
No. My point is you know how hard the impact feels when there's actually damage to the car?
True. Yeah. I mean, it did tear up his nice fiberglass fenders, but I remember like there was a moment where like there was like a little bit of panic saving happening, because this is like downhill, like towards the last corner. It's really, really fast.
Yep.
And I remember like looking at this Armco and being like, I'm not afraid at all. And I was like, I thought that was kind of cool. I was like, oh, I felt fine. Maybe because I wasn't driving.
Yeah, right. He must be in control.
But yeah, I think I just like maybe I'm not afraid, actually.
There's no possibility that any of this can go wrong.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's a reckless thought.
I think when you don't understand when to be afraid, that's like kind of a superpower.
It is kind of a superpower.
When you realize when you need to be afraid, it sometimes spills over a little too much.
It's confusing because like when I'm in the FRS and I'm like sliding around, like
Yeah.
But then in someone else's car, I'm like it'd be 95 miles an hour sideways in the grass and be like, this is fine.
Sure.
So
Sideways in the grass.
we were
Nice.
The last part of that is I will say it's way easier to go sideways in a fast car in a small space than it is to be like Gingerman is a pretty big space for a little FRS.
Yeah.
It's really hard to just like learn to slide around because you have to go
So fast.
pretty fast for what the car can do. I know what you're talking about with the way it moves is not as comfortable.
Yeah.
So a lot of what we talked about in the last 20 minutes has been like 2018 to 2020 up to, but I would say as hard as COVID was, you were one of the people that really thrived because of the timing and the position and everything. And you are, to toot your horn, in my opinion, you defined North American sports car sim stuff for COVID. Because you worked with everybody.
I did.
And you were the standard because you taught yourself how to do this. And everyone's like, well, we can't race now. Obviously iRacing might have done their own broadcast for once or twice for IMSA. Not once or twice, but but you were doing everything.
Well, so it brings up a pretty interesting point.
And you were like the North American option.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and part of this comes back to you, Tom, because when GT World Challenge was like, oh, we can't race. How do we solve this problem? They're like, we need to do an esports championship. We have this game. We have this official game. We should use it for an esports thing. And I guess Robbie Montanola, who's the marketing director over there, had reached out to you and asked if you knew anybody, and you suggested me.
Yep.
Which was super cool. He asked me for a quote. I gave him some ridiculously high number because I had no idea. Like, I was like, I feel like I should ask for a lot of money, but like, I don't know how to do. You know what I mean?
I vaguely remember you telling me that you had an opportunity and I need to build a quote. And I think you told me the first quote you were going to give them, and I was like, do not tell them that. Like, add a 0 or something, like whatever it was. Yeah.
Yeah. And we ended up kind of coming down to something that was still what I thought was a lot, which in hindsight was like not very much.
Kyle at this point's like, $15 for a single broadcast, not cutting. I'm going to raise that to $20.
Well,
$20.
I think at that point we were like, it was like, maybe we were getting $40 a broadcast or something.
Yeah.
It wasn't like crazy, but when you're like working with these big professional groups, like you don't want to get like they're making lots of money off these things, right? So one of the things I needed was a new graphics card, and they had a partnership with Asus, and I was like, all right, well, what if we said this, but you can get me a graphics card? And they're like, okay, we'll connect you to Asus, and that they did. And Asus was like, hey, we have one. Like we collectively as a company have one of these that we can give to you or sell to you. Like I had to buy it, but there was like we'll give you this isn't like when crypto was going crazy.
Yeah, I was gonna
get
put down some context. Like you could not get graphics cards.
I needed a 3080, and I was like, you could not get them.
Yeah,
and they're like, we have one. We'll sell it to you.
If you did want one, you were gonna spend 3 times of what it normally cost, like new. So you were going to spend $3,000 instead of $1,000 on a graphics card.
Yeah, and so they were like, "We'll give it to you at MSRP. You have to fill out this form." And it felt illegal, like what I was doing. Like the information I put on that form and like emailed to them was like it felt illegal. But it showed up at my house, and we put it in, and
it worked.
And it worked.
Is it still the same
it's
GPU?
Still the same GPU I use now.
And Tom got a computer from Asus at that point too, and that's still Tom's computer. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Thanks, Asus.
But yeah, I mean, like during that time, I think the SCCA also fired up an esports situation too.
No, we did that.
Well, right.
The three of us at this table basically made that.
I forget that you guys were involved with the rest of the production of that
because they didn't know what to do. So I built the schedule and the challenges, and we built the way it was going to work, and we helped them run it. And then there was Andy Albin and John Hunter and a couple behind the scenes, but. If we didn't do it, that wasn't going to happen.
No, and it looked really good.
It was really good.
Dude, it was really good, and the membership loved it. It's honestly a shame that they don't do that officially anymore because I think they would gain a lot of value from that. And maybe they're moving toward like a more digital presence because they got rid of the magazine, and honestly, the content they've been coming out with is like pretty stellar. They should really take another look at the sim racing stuff because people really, really enjoyed that, and they do that virtual runoffs things, but really it's just like
that's a branding thing.
Yeah, it's just DJ and Morgan against a bunch of Europeans. Like that's what that turns into. Yeah. So it's not really like a place for the SCCA membership to sim race against each other.
I think another series that we were working with at that time, I guess it wasn't really a series, but it was like a network. We were working with Speed 51, which at the time was, and it's called something different now, but at the time it was like the biggest like non-network like place to watch like short track oval racing, and they were doing all their esports stuff too. And so we would basically broadcast straight to their network, like their internet network. And so we did a bunch of like modifieds and short track stuff. That was 1 or 2 times a week. I'm trying to think what else, because I did like Porsche Esports Sprint Challenge Canada for a couple years. That might have been a little later, but I've worked with some.
But everything
That was
during everything during COVID kind of like sprung
Yeah.
into that, because there was like this huge momentum push into like sim racing. Like it's because all of a sudden there wasn't real racing, and everyone's like, well, crap, we have like sponsors, and
Yeah.
like Grid Life did the same thing. They're like, well, we have to appease these sponsors somehow. So then they like went like full into like
Yeah.
the series that already existed.
It's just right
and-
place, right time, right? And,
Yeah.
and for me, like in my college career, this is the end of my senior year, and I was like not having a great time. I realized that like I was going for computer engineering, was not stoked about it. The pandemic was really like my escape to like not have to think about it as much. And you could take a bunch of classes, pass, fail at the end. Like it didn't matter. It was great.
Didn't you take a dance class?
A dance class.
Wait,
Didn't
what?
You took something weird elective at the end of your college, didn't
Yeah,
you?
let's hear about the weird electric
Skydiving?
tile.
Skydiving. No, I don't remember what
No,
it was.
maybe not. But okay, so
I
you're
did like a film class, which was kind of cool.
Well, that seems relevant.
maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, were you just like, and then Clockwork Orange?
Well,
the-
it was like where you analyze like old movies.
Yeah,
and
that's why I brought up Clockwork
Gotcha,
Orange.
okay.
Obviously, you failed that class.
No,
If you didn't catch that
I did
reference.
well, but it was a long time ago.
So you're in 2020, 2021, you're broadcasting for SCCA, Grid Life, SRO.
Yep.
And you're still doing like 7-8 leagues a week
Yep.
for all these little buddy leagues that
Yep.
we like Washington DC for us, and all
Yep.
these circle track things.
Yep, I had a bunch of buddy leagues. There was 2 or 3 nights a week we would be double stacked. So we'd get back from classes, jump on the computer at 6, and not be done till 10.
Yeah.
Right, like 4 hours of work in the evenings, like back to back. And it was like we had to kind of have a couple leagues like shift their timeline a little bit. And we've done it. We've done that even recently.
Yeah.
Where like we had to kind of shuffle times around to make things work, because we're just like, all right, yeah, we'll take it. Yes. And so we did that for a long time, where it was like, yeah, absolutely, we'll do that. Yes, we'll do that. And we just kept saying yes to everything.
Yeah.
And at that time,
and when
like-
you say we, it's you and Finian.
yeah. And he and I, and we both liked it a lot. We were making pretty good money to not actually have a real job. To like be doing this as a side gig was like pretty lucrative at the time, right? So I remember like doing my taxes at the end of 2020, and I was like, I wasn't looking for a job because it was a pandemic. I was like, I don't really know what I want to do.
Yeah.
Right. And this is probably like August of 2020. I was like looking through my record keeping. I was like, oh, if I like did this, I could do this. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
if I just went in all on this, I could make the numbers make sense to like live in Rochester, New York, and like do esports broadcasting. Like that could have been a path. But that was kind of the same time that I had spent the rest of that year in the summer going to Grid Life, because I had had the experience in 2019 where they brought me out a couple of times to do some real world announcing. I loved it so much that
Did you just like get yourself there the first time?
I did. I drove myself there, and the Corolla, which is here now,
Yeah.
which
what
was
I
a
thought.
week old to me.
That Corolla's built a career.
It was a week old to me, and I drove it 9 hours to Michigan.
Oh, the Corolla was a week old?
To me,
Nice.
yeah.
Well, it was probably a decade old.
Yes.
by the time you got it, yeah.
7 years old, I think. But yeah, drove myself there, and I remember like sitting in the load-in, which we all know is crazy at Midwest, and it was Bill Griffin, and I like rolled up, or I was on the phone with somebody. I called Adam, or maybe I called you when we rolled in, and he like heard me on the phone because I had my window down. He goes, "Is that Kyle?" And I was like, "What? Like someone knows what I sound like?"
That's pretty cool.
And he's like, "Right this way," and I was like, "This is so cool."
Red carpet.
Yeah, and I
Roll
remember
it right out.
I remember like the first thing I parked up, I like went to this camper where it was like, I think you were there, Ed was there, and you were there, and I remember being super intimidated by Tom because
Well, it's Tom.
I was a professional race car driver.
You were
at
a
the
professional
time.
race car driver, and I
He's
was like,
very intimidating.
Now I'm just me.
I like knew
I'm
that he was
still
nice,
intimidated
but
by
like
Tom.
the first thing you're like, "Hey, do you want a beer?" And I was like, "Oh, he's cool."
Yeah, so I think what a lot of people don't know is like how you even got introduced to like the Grid Life people, and basically they had WDCR SCCA, they had a broadcaster that was just like he would literally follow cars around and chase cam, and like and just like talk about the race or talk about his day, or it was like a podcast with like a race going on, right? And it was just him doing it, and it was just like, but I remember watching those and being like, oh my God, this is so cool. Like, there's a podcast with a thing. And then Dave Fitzgerald, who ran the league, the WDCR league at the time, he's like, oh, hey, I got us a new broadcaster. He's kind of young, but he like seems like super legit. And so everyone was like, yeah, sure. And then we saw like the first broadcast and we're like, holy crap, we are race car drivers. Like,
I'd like to ask Dave, because I don't remember how he found me.
I don't know how he found you either. Maybe he was watching like, were you guys posting on Reddit or something?
We might have posted. Finian was the Redditor of us.
Okay. Maybe he found you through Finian, which is kind like, so like, that means that Finian like is literally
The butterfly effect of not meeting Finian.
Dude.
Wait, can I go back to that for a second?
Yeah.
So the way that I met Finian was I had a different roommate my freshman year in college. And my original roommate was from Long Island. And he had gone to the same school as Finian. And they ended up going to Binghamton together. And Finian was living in a different building. But he was like, oh, I'm going to go hang out with my friend and see like what, and his friend being my roommate, see what he's up to. And I was in the common space of our college apartment thing, watching the 2016 NASCAR truck race at Moseport.
So you're like just like in the dorm living room,
just hanging out watching.
Yeah.
And Finian walks in, he's like, "Oh, you like racing?" And
did we just become best friends?
Yeah.
And like we watched like the last 10 laps of that race, and that was the finish that like John Hunter Nemechek and Cole Custer like crashed into each other and like fought each other, like where he decks them. And we're like, yeah, like it's like college dudes dream to like watch a NASCAR fight, right?
Yeah.
So we were bonding over that. And so that was kind of what kicked off this whole thing. I think all the time about how had I been doing anything else other than watching that race at that time, I would have never met him.
Yeah.
The butterfly effect is crazy. It all stems from that.
Wow, that is wild.
Yeah, because you might have just bounced away from Finian. You guys like maybe that was like the perfect time, perfect place for like you two to hang out in like that setting.
I don't think we ever would have met otherwise. Like we didn't like necessarily like make an effort to meet each other after that necessarily.
Yeah.
It was just all like when we were my roommate ended up bailing out, and so it was like, well, what's your plan, man? Like, oh, I don't know, I don't have one, and that was we just ended up being roommates after that.
Yeah. Wow, that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, and we were really good roommates too.
Yeah. So you met the people through DC region to start broadcasting that as like just one of the $40 a night fun leagues, which introduced you to some of the drivers that also were doing the Grid Life, which was Track Midwest at the time, right?
So what would happen is I would run the Grid Life. There was a WDCR would have a practice on Monday, and Grid Life would also have a practice on Monday. And I remember like my goal was like, I'm going to go set the fastest time in this practice, and I'm going to leave, and I'm going to go set the fastest time in the other practice. And then I would like show up to some of the races for Grid Life's thing. And then I think Eric Attil was running the league at the time. And he was making it more official with like a points leadership and stuff like a points championship. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll like participate in that. And I was like winning every race. And then Kyle was
Some things never change.
Kyle was doing the WDCR thing, and I'm like Kyle should broadcast this Grid Life thing because I'm like owning all these guys. Like somebody should see this, right? Like that's literally where my brain was at. And
Somebody needs to see this.
I'm like somebody needs to see this. So I brought it up to like the league admins that we should have a broadcast. Here's Kyle. I like sent him a link to like a WDCR race, and they weren't like going for it. And I was like, screw it, I'll just hire Kyle myself.
Oh my God. I didn't know
Chad
this.
move. Also, I don't know. Did I know this?
I was like, we'll just
Probably,
no. I
'cause-
don't know if we've ever talked about it. I'm like, I'm just gonna hire Kyle myself, and like, I'll just pay for him to broadcast the races of that I'm winning all these races. Like, this is good publicity for me,
That's
right?
unbelievable.
So I literally hired you, and then after that, they're like, well, shit, DJ hired a broadcaster for the thing. Let's bring him in the admin chat. And so then
yeah,
I
I
got
remember
brought
that.
into the admin chat, and then it like became a little bit more official. And then I was an admin, and then as people dropped out, I just became like the guy running that league. And then like people would come in and help and stuff like that. But like that's how Kyle started doing Grid Life iRacers, and that's like how Grid Life iRacers became more of a thing. That's how you got on the radar of Adam and Chris and them, because I brought up to them. I'm like, because the first broadcast was like Tom and Adam. Right at Mid Ohio.
Oh yeah.
But you were at that point, like I already knew like what you were capable of, and I think it was even at Mid Ohio. I talked to Adam about like, hey, I don't know if you watched the Grid Life iRacer stuff, but like you should have Kyle come out and like commentate because that would be like super cool. And like Adam was like,
He's probably like, yeah, I don't want to do this. That's
yeah, no, yeah, exactly. That's probably exactly how he was. And he's like, yeah, that would be cool. That would be cool. And then we like didn't mention it again. And then like Midwest was coming up, and I'm like, you guys should really have Kyle come out. And then they were like, yeah, sure. Like, if he can get here, like, we'll put him on the mic. And then that's why you had to drive out all on your own.
Yeah, Finian couldn't do it for whatever reason. We actually had another friend that lived in Michigan that we knew Jarrett was his name. That was like didn't really work with us a lot, but he like wanted to show up, and so I like asked if we could get him a ticket, and he showed up, but like didn't end up doing. He just hung out the whole weekend.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember. I think that was the first race that we ever did. I think it was at Porsche Cup at VIR. Was the first Track Midwest race we ever did.
Yeah.
The second one was at Sonoma, and it went all to hell. I remember like I had a
like
catastrophic computer problem.
Oh, because that's when iRacing had that weird glitchy.
It still does, but it just the hardware I had at the time.
But that's where that Grid Life iRacer format came from, where we used the heat racing and stuff. Because the problem was that you couldn't stream more than 40 cars.
Yeah.
But we would have more than 40 entries. So it was like, okay, well, why don't we just split it into heat racing?
Yeah.
And
And
that
that
became like a really popular format.
Yeah, and at that time I had no idea. Like it was so new to me. I had no idea what the problem even was. But I was just so mad. I was like, this new group, like they're gonna hate me. Like I remember being so frustrated about it.
We literally changed the rules to make it work.
Yeah, and you know that problem still exists with iRacing, but now my hardware is good enough, and I use 2 PCs now.
Oh, that probably helps.
Yeah, so it helps a lot. It was actually that's new. That's within the last year and a half.
Is it like
or
a
so.
CPU limitation? Sorry,
Yeah.
we're getting into the weeds.
It
but-
is it's a processor limitation. It has to do with the audio channel in particular and the number of sounds it's playing. And it got a lot worse with the new damage model.
Gotcha. Yeah, because they probably have more channels.
Yeah, for like all the parts falling off and like
like-
the clips and like it just
Yeah.
it gets bad.
Okay.
So,
Gotcha.
So I had to when I did the Porsche Esports Sprint Challenge.
Guys,
stuff.
iRacing came out in 2008. It's literally still the same thing. They just keep putting patches on top of it.
I have to give them credit though. Like it's still like now that I have separated the streaming from the racing PC, it runs like butter all the time. It was just like when you try to do everything on one PC, it's not good for it. Right?
Yep.
And you're running graphics and music and other stuff in the background. Like there's a lot going on. I mean, I use the equivalent of 5 displays. Like I have like a super ultra wide and then 2 on top of that. That like you have a lot. Like every one of them is packed full. I run Zoom now when I do streams, so like you have like drivers' cameras and stuff. So which you have to like manually select each driver as you're picking them to like watch, and then you have to like sync up on the timing screen, like what driver you're looking at on Zoom to which one you want to look. There's so much happening so fast. I can't even explain it.
So
And a reminder that he's directing and producing and commentating, doing all of the things he just talked about. It's crazy.
And as the viewer, you would have no idea.
No idea.
Yeah, you're just. It just seems like cameras are switching. So I remember the first Grid Life iRacer race where you were commentating Tom, and you didn't know who he was, and you found out that he was an IMSA driver. You found out he was an IMSA driver through like the YouTube chat.
Yep.
Because people are like, "Oh, that's Tom O'Gorman. He's like Pirelli World Champion."
And I feel like now I like that effect of like they're like an IMSA driver like is lesser on me now, but like
for sure.
at the time it was like
you're like,
whoa, celebrity, you know? And now it's just like, oh, another one. You know?
but
But I just have so many race car driver friends now. It's like not that weird, right? Like
Well, and then also you don't know if it's like IMSA driver because they have a lot of zeros
Correct.
behind
You learn
the
the
name.
understanding
or-
of how they get there. You're like, okay, whatever.
yeah, that definitely has a factor.
So you started transitioning into commentating Grid Life pretty casually. Just so like if you show up, you can talk on the mic.
Yeah.
And you're doing it better than the rest of us anyway, so like please do it, right?
Yeah.
Then transitioning to hired jobs, SRO, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
What were the challenges going from doing your own production in your bedroom to like being somewhat just like you're propped up because we like you and now you're hired?
Well, the SRO thing was really scary because that job came the middle of 2020. So this is after the GT Rivals esports thing. It went really, really well. And Robbie calls
Speak for yourself. Okay. I was driving in it. I was so bad at that game.
Remember when we both tried to like do Bathurst and the first attempt at it turned into a 50-car pileup?
Yep. I think did we do a restart on that race?
We did. Well, because then the whole server crashed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a mess.
Well, that's not your problem.
No,
that's not SRO's problem. That was just a set of course of competition.
Yeah, I just remember all the cars like would just like fly over, like they just like start gliding up on like an invisible ramp over the wall.
They would literally ET start flying toward the moon. Yeah.
But I remember like I got a phone call from Robbie. I was in my college apartment, and Robbie's like, "Hey, can you be in Sonoma in August?" And I was like, yes, I don't know what's happening. And he's like, well, we have this. Our clients, our sponsors can't bring people to the racetrack right now. So there's some stuff for you at the racetrack to do that will like help them like communicate what's happening at the race weekend back to their staff. And so I was like super stoked about it. And so it was my first opportunity to like fly across the country and do a thing at a racetrack I'd never been to before.
Was that your first time on an airplane?
Second time. The first
Okay.
time was to Road Atlanta in 2019.
Oh,
for
that's
Great
right.
Life.
That's right. I forgot about
Which
that.
was a big deal because I'd only ever flown on a little Cessna before, which was like the other fun part of that story.
I remember talking to you at Road Atlanta, and that's when we all found out that was your first time on an airplane. And I think that's when we realized that we like brought some kid.
Yeah. It wasn't like a well-traveled, like, no, I was just like a nerd from Rochester,
we're
New
just
York.
like we just brought this like computer dork across the country.
Yeah. But no, so I went to Sonoma, and basically what the role was is there was this
Good things.
this big cybersecurity firm, which I'm sure it doesn't matter at this point, but they basically used to bring 50 or 100 people to the racetrack every single weekend, and they would watch in a booth or whatever. They couldn't do that because of the pandemic. So what they had me do was set up a little live streaming setup where I would basically take the feed from the broadcast truck, and I would take another audio channel and route it into the computer so that I didn't get the commentator audio. So it was just like trackside mics and the broadcast. And so my job was to announce the race, but only focused on the drivers that I was supposed to be focused on, which is like three people.
Oh, gotcha.
So it was like a custom, like white labed broadcast, basically.
Yeah.
Kind of like what you did.
What do you mean?
Hired him and then
Yeah.
basically. And so basically Robbie was like, hey, what equipment do we need for this? And I told him, I had him get like some boom mics or, some things like that. And I remember watching it back, and like the audio quality was so bad. And it was like, this is a disaster.
Did
Like,
you have feedback for him?
well, I felt bad because I like recommended him to buy those things. And even he was like, this doesn't sound that great and like doesn't look that great. So like, what do we do different? I was like, and this is my first time ever working.
You had to watch the same YouTube videos I watched, Kyle.
So I was like, I'm never going to do that again. So I think the next race was Road America. And I was like, all right, how am I going to do this properly? So I went and did a whole bunch of research on audio equipment. I ended up buying this $700 Behringer mixer, digital mixer, and these Audio Technica headsets that I still use all these things today. But I solved my audio problems forever, and our broadcasts on SimTV started sounding way better.
Yep, it did. Yep.
So that was like a really big piece of the deal for me, was to like have my own equipment, bring it, set it up. Like I had my own little mobile mini, like right next to the broadcast one. So they would set me up, and I'd have my own little space, and that went on for the rest of that season. And then the next season, I did the whole thing again. But they would like dabble me in. They had me writing articles for most of the year for I think TC and GT America, and then I also did a little bit of PA announcing. And then at Watkins Glen, they were like, "Hey, Amanda Busick, who's their pit lane reporter, she needs to go do some stuff for the NHRA." And this is like I'm at the racetrack already.
Yeah.
And they're like, Calvin and Ryan and Robbie were all like, and Amanda were all like, we have chosen you to like replace Amanda for the weekend in these 3 races or 4 races or whatever. And I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. I've never once been an on-camera personality ever.
Yeah.
I had never even thought of like how you would even pit report. But
How did you plug in? Were you like...
so Amanda, she hadn't left yet, so she gives me the rundown. Basically, there's like a little phone tablet device that runs a program called Unity, which is basically like a radio interface where you can like hear a bunch of different audio channels, and they actually give you the broadcast feed, like super low latency broadcast feed on it, so you can like watch the race in real time.
Oh, that's pretty legit.
And it connects with earbuds, and then you have a stick mic that connects to a little
Whoever made that software is literally driving a GT3 car.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But it didn't just have like a normal mic that you'd hold in your hand that like XLRs into a little transmitter. But you have to be within range of a camera guy because they have the receiver for that.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
And so what's really weird is like you're not tethered to him, but he has to like chase you around.
Yeah.
And it's like your job to go find stuff to talk about.
I
yeah.
was going to ask if you were supposed to drive that.
They do a little bit, and they did a lot for me that weekend because they didn't know what I was.
Yeah. Do they like task you like, hey, go talk to this person?
They're like, hey, this just happened. Go run down there.
Yeah.
But the problem is like they don't know where the pit box is, and I don't know what anybody looks like. So it's like like go talk to Wright Motorsports. It's like, who's Wright Motorsports? So that sort of thing. And so
Walking around looking for RIGHT and
yeah. But at the time, like I had spent most of my time focused on one team, right?
Yeah.
Not the entire series, right? But I had a lot of fun, and watching even today, like those clips that I have from those moments, like still stand up pretty well. And it was really encouraging to have that experience. And I remember that had me do it again at Indy. And there was one moment where one of the drivers in the GT4 series, like they had gotten in the car and they put their feet on the pedals, and the pedal adjuster broke, and the pedals went sliding to the front of the cockpit. And they asked for an update, And I ran down there like out of breath. I was like, "What's going on?" And they're like, "The pedal adjuster broke. Like the pedal's all stuck."
That has to be the dumbest way to lose a race.
Yeah. I hadn't even started. Like they hadn't even rolled off pit lane yet. And I like gave him the report.
Cool,
back.
even dumber.
And then Calvin like immediately pipes in after. He's like, well, thanks for that. Like, and he explained the whole pedal adjuster thing. And I watched that clip back, and I was like, that was so cool.
Yeah.
Like to be there, like this pivotal moment in the championship race, and
Yeah.
it was really really neat. But and then the following year, they brought in DJ Clark, who comes from an esports background as well, but they needed to have a new PA. They were trying to put more focus in their fan experience. They wanted new PA announcers, and so they shifted he and I to that role for the last couple of years. So that's what we've been doing.
How competitive is it? Does it feel? Because I step in and out of commentary like twice a year, and so I'm not competing for those roles. But now that you're in it, is it pretty competitive? Because I don't even think about these other people that come from other sports and things, but
I am not
they're there.
At heart like
Be
that
honest.
competitive of a person, but yeah, like there is a little bit of that, and mostly when it comes to like for example like GR Cup, right? Like DJ and I both knew, and we've talked about this, so this is fine if he
DJ.
listens to this. Different DJ. We've talked about this, so it's like fine if I talk about this, but we both knew that Robbie wanted us to do that series. What we didn't know is like which one of us did he want to lead it.
Got it.
And so I think we both were like, I should lead. And we both felt like we were capable of doing it, but we had
And you both probably are capable of doing it.
yes, absolutely. But we had a conversation about it, and DJ and I are friends, and so I was like, all right, so you feel really strongly that like you can lead this. I own one of these cars, and I have a lot of knowledge about it mechanically, and I've driven it on track. Like it might be better, and I like took the initiative to be like, it might actually be better for the show if I'm the color on this, and had a little bit more of like a technical feedback perspective rather than drive the show. And I think that that's been generally a good thing. I think that I took the step to be like, we're both going to get paid the same. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But I don't want it just to be like a fighting over it. Like what's better for the viewer?
Yeah.
Right. And it's better for the viewer if the person giving the color commentary like actually knows what they're talking about. And DJ will be the first one to admit like he's not the biggest car guy. Like he can explain dynamics and things, but I know that car so well, the ins and outs of everything. And the GR86 is so similar underneath to the previous car that there's not really fundamentally that much different going on. And I think that that's been a big benefit to the viewer that like I have experience in the car and understand it mechanically, have worked on them. So that was a decision I've made. Now, there are other opportunities that haven't even been decided upon yet that are coming that we're both like it might only be a spot for one of us, and like it is a little bit competitive in
You gotta
that.
pull straws or rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah.
You know what?
Well-
Yeah, I think, guys, the fairest option here is Xbox controller, iRacing, Watkins Glen Mustang. Like,
Yeah.
Well, even
they
like
got to decide it
fastest
through
time
there.
gets the
Yeah,
job.
fastest time gets the job.
even
Because
like-
obviously that's going to be the metric to who's going to do a better job in SRO.
yeah, even like the Indy 8-hour opportunity though, like that came to me. I had kind of heard rumblings that they were going to look for because they had Bob Varsha in the past, but I'd heard rumblings that they were going to use somebody different and that they were likely going to go with someone like me or DJ. And I'd also heard rumblings that was probably going to be me. And I was like, oh no, like DJ's from Indy. Like this would be his dream to do this. And it was like, Greg Gill sat down with me at Barber and he's like, hey, do you want to do this? And I was like, yes. And then I was like all in my head about it because I was like, had to spend the rest of the weekend with DJ, like knowing that I was like going to do this really cool thing. And then he found out about it and was like pretty bummed. And I felt really bad. But then I found out, and he found out that they were going to put him on pit lane and that he was going to roll swap with Amanda for a couple hours. And then I would go replace him in the PA booth while I was, it would only be a 2-man booth while I went and relieved him. So he got some limelight also.
Yeah,
but
cool.
it is a little bit like we like each other. We're really good friends, but like, yeah, there's not space for everybody all the time. Right.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily that like one of us is better than the other. It's just like, I'd been there a little longer and I'd worked in the booth that year at VIR. So like, it just kind of made sense. And so I don't get aggressive or competitive about it. Like I'm going to work there again next year. Like it's like you can't make enemies with people that you're going to be with, right? So
I just completely blanked. Oh, I was going to ask you, what's your favorite one to call of all those things?
favorite of anything?
We've kind of covered everything you've done, other than Pikes Peak, because you do Pikes Peak now.
Pikes Peak.
Okay, hold on. Let's hear about. Do I need to turn on the Thomas the Train Engine music? Do you know that? Do you know that from the podcast?
Do you know the bit?
I don't know if I know the bit. This might be a newer bit than I am familiar
Okay,
with.
well,
okay.
if,
So
if
we're-
somebody, are you going to go on a rant? Because if you're going on a rant, then
Well,
I
hang
can,
on. I was going to give you an opportunity at some point because something you and I can bond over is we both love a good rant.
Well,
Like I love to go in
I
on something.
don't know
So
that
there's
it's
a
a
bit on the
rant.
podcast that I've ranted about Buc-ee's. I ranted about yellow flag etiquette. I've ranted about all sorts of bullshit on here. So if I want to give you the opportunity at some point to do a rant, is this it?
all right.
Is Pikes Peak your rant?
It can
Hold
be.
on, this is a different. That is not the theme
Yeah, I don't know
song.
what you
Hold
were
on,
just
what
playing.
the heck was that?
I know my Thomas the Tank Engine, by the way. That was my childhood thing.
Me too. And then and then everyone started calling it to me.
Yeah, here we go.
There it is. Yeah. So then Tom's just ranting. He's just
I'm just
having
going
a
off.
grand
But-
old time.
All right. So tell us about Pikes Peak, and then tell us which
Hold
one's
on.
your favorite.
Should I turn on the Thomas the Tank Engine?
You can. Okay. So the thing about Pikes Peak, I love that event. I think it's so cool. I think the organizers do an amazing job with prepping me for it. It is a really impossible event to cover. Like that, you don't get a lot of camera shots. There are 60 of the competitors, or like 40 of them are new every year, right?
Yeah.
So they don't really have a lot of background. A lot of them don't have social media. It's really hard to study for because you get there a day before and they don't load in until like 12 hours before the race starts, which is when the broadcast team and me are leaving to go get 3 hours of sleep before you come back around because you have to get there at 11 p.m. to get in the gate because there's one road up and one road down for the competitors and for everybody in the event. So you need to get onto the mountain by 1 in the morning or you don't get on the mountain. And then you have to sleep in a rental car until 5 a.m. when we start. And then it's an 8.5 hour long broadcast, of which 7 of the hours, there's a camera pointed at your face because there's nothing actually happening on the road because someone crashed or there's just no coverage of them in that moment. And then when they do get you the one helicopter shot that you've been waiting for all day, that corner looks like that corner. There's 150 of them.
Oh, I
God
didn't even think
knows.
about that.
So yeah,
Like-
it's hard to talk about what's happening.
It's so hard, and all these cars are custom. It's not like they're like you can't know everything about it immediately, right? Again, I mentioned 40 of the competitors were new this year. It's
Yeah.
really hard to know, and then you've got 200,000 people watching you on your first day of work, and it's just really hard. And then they're all like, "I don't want to see this dumb talking head," and it's like, I don't want to see me either. If I could choose to have this camera anywhere else, it would be somewhere else. I promise. I begged them this year not to put the camera on me so much. Oh, and then the interviews. And then they just, because they know they have to fill time.
Tom or Kyle put his hands on his head. Oh, the interviews.
No, like, I'm happy to do the interviews. They're great. But it's just like, it's so hard to make those compelling when like the people that are in them don't necessarily even want to be on.
Yeah.
I don't know. I love it. It's a great event. I'm really excited to go back. It's just the hardest thing I've ever done professionally in my life.
Sure. That's a grassroots thing across the board. I've done pit lane and some other like go out and talk to people things, and club racers do not understand the opportunity
Was that
to
a good
promote
rant?
themselves.
Yeah, that was a
so
great
good.
rant. That might be the best Thomas the Tank Engine rant we've ever heard. So
I don't know if you could notice, but somehow the music had synced up perfectly with what you were doing. It was so good.
Like the music would get more intense as the rant intensified.
Look, I love the event. I think it's really cool. I don't want that to take away from anything from the event. It's just really, really, really hard.
Yeah, yeah.
And I do it because it's challenging, but I've done it 2 years in a row. And both times I'm like, this might be the most catastrophic thing I could do professionally because I'm not knowledgeable enough about it yet. I will at some point. They keep sticking with me. I will be, but I'm not necessarily the most knowledgeable person to talk about. I didn't even have a co-announcer this year.
Yeah.
So it's just really, really hard when everyone in the comments is really knowledgeable and they're hyper nerds about it.
Yeah.
And they will call you out every single second. And they're also kind of mean. Like
super mean.
like this year.
Why are they so mean?
Well,
Because it's a YouTube live chat. Of course they're mean.
I've like lost a bunch of weight in the last
Mean
couple
and
of months, but there was one comment that was like, "This dude looks like he changes his oil with mac and cheese," and I was like, "Oh my god, I don't even know what that means." But I probably would.
You should start screenshotting them. I actually like savings. Like,
And then my poor
Every once in a while.
mom jumped in the chat.
Oh no! She's like, I'll have you know, motherfuckers.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's a fun event, but it is definitely the most challenging. It makes everything else feel really easy.
wasn't there a guy that like shipped his car from England with no game plan of how to get it there? He was in this like little black Caterham thing. And he like it was his dad's car, and so he had his ashes in the roll cage, and he like shipped the car. with,
Duncan.
and then he went really
Cowper.
fast.
Yeah, Duncan
that
Cowper. I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm impressed I remembered that name.
See, you're becoming a professional,
Slowly.
guys. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah, but yeah, it's a hard event. I think if you could watch the whole mountain, it'd be different.
That's the static cam thing. I
And-
mean, that's a
but-
big
but people
challenge
don't-
with time attack and everything.
But people don't get it. Like and you know this because you understand that the challenges of broadcast, but this course is the length of the Nürburgring up a mountain in the middle of nowhere. Everyone's like, oh, why can't they have cameras? Cameras are connected with fiber optic cable. Like, that's how most broadcasts are done. Where are you going to run that cable? You can't run it on the side of the road. It's also, the road that you're driving.
Even if you did like some of the newer broadcasting techniques with like a mobile data and stuff, it's on a mountain.
It's on a mountain.
How much cellular service do you think you have a mile into the sky?
We hear drones all the time. It's like, oh, just use drones. It's like, drones don't fly this high. You're at 10,000 feet and higher.
Yeah, the air's too thin.
You need to use gas-powered drones, which you need to refill. The helicopter can only do 15 minutes of flight at a time before it has to refuel.
Whoa, I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably because it's like full throttle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The altitude that you're at, it's just crazy. So people don't understand the challenges that are involved with that, and they just assume that it's easy, or they look at like World Rally and they're like, oh, well, they do it. It's like the budgets are not even remotely comparable.
But also with World Rally, you still get the same 8 camera shots of every car going by static.
Right.
You don't get to follow that
either. It's not
either.
the same. Yeah, it's not the same. And I really wish people would understand that, that I promise the camera's not on me because we think I'm the most interesting thing here. I promise. Like if there were, the thing is like next year I'm going to beg them just to like don't even set a camera up here. Just show them an empty static track shot just so that they know that they're not missing anything.
Or you got to parlay it into some sort of like AI thing and have like an avatar of yourself created so he can talk and you don't have to be on camera.
It's like a cartoon Kyle.
Oh no.
I would love that.
I've seen that done in sim racing context before, and it's bad.
Yeah. Doesn't NASCAR do like they tie in some sort of little characters now?
I hope not.
What, trying to bring in the kids? You know what brings in the kids? A DuPont paint with Jeff Gordon driving the car.
Exactly.
That's what brings in the kids. We got on that Thomas Tank Engine rant. Thank you again for that, Kyle.
Oh, you said what my favorite thing was.
What's your favorite thing to broadcast?
Oh, or job.
It's like picking a favorite child, right? To some extent, I think the most gratifying one would be GLTC. I think it's because I'm so involved with not
the whole process,
and like the graphics and like all that stuff is my baby, right? Like I spent so much time concepting and planning, and we spent. I know everyone there so well that it makes it really easy to tell super compelling stories. Like I cried when Eric Catil won at Midwest last year. Like I'm so invested. I've never once felt that anywhere else. So that's the most gratifying one. I think my favorite. It'd be really hard not to call GLTC my favorite. But like what I really want to do, the thing that I want to escalate in my career right now, which I think SRO has given me the opportunity to, is more international stuff. And so the 8 hour, I think, was probably my favorite, like singular opportunity that I've ever had. That felt like if I'm trying to get to international endurance racing, and I don't want to like be the guy, I just want to be like a guy that they tab in on occasion. That is part of it is one of the endurance races of all time, but it is part of a 4-round series that goes to Bathurst and Spa. Mm-hmm. And what's the other one I'm forgetting? Bathurst, Spa,
it's
Indy.
Not the ring.
It is the ring now. You're right. That's new.
It is the ring now?
As of
look
last
at Tom,
year.
you're right all the time, even when you think you're not right.
So, and I think like Suzuka was a part of that in the past. So, like, it wasn't
Kailani
one of
had
those.
an 8 hour?
Yeah.
Right? Is that part of it?
They did. I don't think they have anymore.
Okay, anyway,
but
so go ahead.
It wasn't one of those races, but it is the same drivers and teams and the same like series. And I think that that's really cool. And I would like to do more of that. I think that opportunity, I walked away professionally being like, that was probably the coolest thing I've ever done. Is like jumping on a broadcast with 2 seasoned professionals and absolutely crush it. Like it was so satisfying.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You know what my favorite thing you've ever done is, and you're never gonna guess it. So there's no point in you trying. Remember that one Sim TV broadcast where you brought in all the different leagues to fight against each other?
I kind of had a feeling you were going to go that route. Oh, you knew
that's where I was going to go? All right. Well, I'm not as unpredictable as I thought I was.
That was really fun. And I think there was a point in like a year or two ago that it would have been fun to spool it back up again. There was a lot of legwork to make that happen. And the oval race was really bad. But the road racing was pretty good.
The oval race was awesome because we got way more points than we should have in that race.
Yeah. So just for context, that was at the time when we were streaming like 8 or 9 different leagues at the same time.
Yeah.
And so Finian and I had this idea to like have like it was 2019, end of 2019, to have a showdown between the leagues, see which league was like top dog.
Yeah.
And so we basically made a bunch of liveries that were all like different color variants of each other that had the series logos on them.
Like IROC.
Yeah. And had everybody battle it out on a road course. I think we did Miatas at Watkins Glen. or it was something at Watkins Glen.
It was Miatas.
And then we did the NASCAR COT at Michigan because it was like free stuff.
I literally got a hold of Robert Hartley. I called him and was like, "You need to be on the Grid Life iRacer team because it's going to be Miatas at Watkins." And at this point, Robert Hartley's like a 9.8 thousand I rating. Like he was the man in Miatas, and I was like, "You need to be on this team." Like I'm like trying to. I felt like a prep school, like bringing in like ringers to the so like our team would win.
Yeah, that was fun. It was a lot of work. Just like we didn't need to make it as hard as we did it. And if we could like trust everyone to like actually run a livery properly, then it would be easier because we basically did it all manually. Which was hard. And then I color coded everyone's names in the ticker and like that. I would do that in a very different way now, but back then it was like very manual. Like I had to like put in Alessandrini, O'Gorman. Like I had to type it all out in an Excel sheet.
Yeah.
Now I could just do it with car numbers and make it really easy. But I've learned some things.
Yeah.
I kind of want to run like an event like that again, but we'll just, instead of leagues that you broadcast, we'll like have prizes for like people representing a league. We'll get a hold of like league owners, and however they come up with who participates in the thing, it's up to them. They can run a season to decide who goes. They can just pick like the people who normally win, whatever. Send your tributes into the race, and we'll gather as many leagues as we can and do another like event like that.
I just wanted to quickly circle back to like what's the favorite thing you've ever done, real quick, because this esports stuff, like iRacing stuff, brought it back. The other favorite thing I've done, not in the real world context, is the GR Cup esports series, and the reason why is because SRO doesn't use iRacing for anything because they have that ACC deal.
Yep.
But because Toyota does a deal with iRacing, they allowed them to use iRacing for this championship, and I was so excited to finally build the SRO
show
graphics
them.
and show them like, here's the vision, like this is what I can do. They work with another contractor to do all their in-person esports events and all their non-in-person esports events that I know how much they get paid. And I know how much I charged for the GR Cup esports thing. It was not a lot of money, but it did better on view count and viewer retention and from a participatory side than IndyCar's esports championship this year. And the total team was 3 people. It was myself, Finian, and Taylor Bedell from SRO, and that was it. And us 3 crushed that. It was so good. It was cool. It looked like we had people confused. They're like, "Is this what? Like, is this happening right now?" And it's like, I thought the race was next week. It's like, no, this is iRacing.
Yeah,
I had the graphics copied perfectly.
And that's not even a realistic car in iRacing.
No, that was a whole other thing. But that was like,
were they flipping and stuff?
No. But from a professional satisfaction standpoint, like, finally, like being able to show Robbie, like, hey, this is what I'm actually capable of if I like really turned it on, or had the tools to,
like able to like fully showcase what your creative can make.
I think like Continental sponsored the track maps. I do like this 3D track map renders and things. And
we don't say that on this podcast.
Oh,
I'm kidding.
Is it Bridgestone?
I'm kidding.
Bridgestone attire.
Sorry, they were. So they sponsored the thing.
Do they sponsor the thing? Good for you.
No. Bridgestone sponsors me.
Yeah,
but you said
Tom-
Continental.
Tom's-
I was trying to.
Tom is a Bridgestone driver.
So Continental, like they paid for that space in the esports broadcast, and I got wind of what that was worth, and I should have been mad. I should have been like, oh my god, like how did I get paid so little? But I was like, I'm so proud that I could add this much value to a motorsports organization. Like, and I don't get that feeling a lot. Like I do a lot of different things for a lot of different companies. And there's a lot of times when I feel like I'm like, oh, that was cool. But like, this was like, I actually contributed to like people's salaries getting paid, which is really dope.
Did you ever notice, because you did the Spec MX-5 series with Winding Road Racing and stuff. Did you ever notice how many people that participated in the iRacing League actually went on to race in Spec MX-5?
Yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot of people. I think it pays. Like, it makes sense.
Yeah.
How many people did the Grid Life iRacer League that now actually race in GLTC? Like, a huge portion of them.
Obviously, there's a lot of complication behind why it's not like officially a supported thing at the moment. But one of the things that I was using to justify it was like, you sell one gold pass, you pay for the whole thing 10 times over.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we have sold gold passes because of Grid Life
So like
iRacers.
SRO, they bring in all these people, and like you don't know where these people end up, like where they are right now or where they are in 5 or 10 years. But like there's a good percentage of people who will be able to afford to race in that series that have been introduced to it by this like running like iRacing series.
Yeah.
and they will end up. I guarantee there's people in that series that will end up racing an SRO because of that series.
Yeah.
It like just pays for itself. It introduces people into like how they do things, and people like to stay with what they're comfortable with.
Yeah, yeah. I think it definitely makes a lot of sense. But I think it just the GR Cup esports thing was really, really satisfying. But again, the esports stuff as of late, and I think that this is something that we've talked about. I really burned hot for a long time with that. To the point where, like, this year, and this is a story that I've told you guys probably both separately, but I had a couple coworkers SRO sit me down a couple months ago, and they're like, Kyle, like, we got to work on you, bud. like you're working so hard, you're like you're not working on yourself. Like, you need to do that. And so I went home, I changed my diet, I changed my exercise, which I wasn't doing. Bought a bunch of new clothes, I bought a bunch of new furniture. Like, I started life over again. And one of the things I realized
where does the new furniture come into play?
Well, I've been living in my apartment for a year. I didn't have a dining room table. It's like, why? Because I wasn't eating proper meals. I wasn't cooking, so all this stuff. And so I realized, when I start doing all this stuff for myself, I don't have space for as much of the sim racing stuff as I did. And I think it's a good thing, at least in the short term, because I was not I'd go work a full shift at Grid Life, come home. I wouldn't have any time to properly eat anything. I would jump straight on the computer for 3.5 more hours and work. And I would get some kind of food, go to bed, and do it all over again.
Yeah, you were running ragged.
And I did that for 5 years, and it's not good for me, right?
Yeah.
And so it's been a really fun. I haven't done a broadcast in a month, which is the longest time in 7 years that I have not.
Are you going to be rusty for this Lizard Brains podcast?
I need to fire. I'm going to be home before it starts, so I can I haven't even updated iRacing in a month, right? So,
dude, it's like a 70 gig download.
Well, it's I was the last couple of weeks I was doing my Oval series. I was sick to my stomach to turn the computer on. I was I hate this.
No way. So you did it so much that it's you've almost alienated yourself from it.
I think it was doing it so much, and then in the process of focusing on other areas of my life, that was I want to be doing anything other than this, you know?
Yeah.
And so, and it was just I had to do it. I had to fulfill contracts, and it was not fun anymore. So there is a amount that is fun, but I was not doing the fun amount.
Yeah.
One of the things I'm really stoked about is I bought a guitar a couple months ago.
I've seen your things.
Yeah.
You actually sound like music, which is cool.
Yeah, which I was never a musical person, and I've always wanted to be. Mm-hmm. And I was imagine all the time I dedicated to tens of thousands of hours.
You would be Taylor Swift.
Well, that was my thought. It's
that was my thought.
No, not Taylor Swift. But if I dedicated the 2.5 hours every night that I would spend minimum working on SimTV stuff to something else that I've always wanted to do, I will be good at it in a very short amount of time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so already, and I had to stop because I cut my finger really bad when I was cooking one time, and I had to get stitched up. I couldn't bend my finger.
Ooh.
So I had to stop for a little while. But I am not good yet, but I'm good enough that I can play some verses to some songs I like and sing to them also, which is a new thing on the internet, by the way, that I've never done before, because I'd never posted my singing on the internet.
Yeah.
It was very scary.
Oh, did you post something?
I did.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
He posted a little story, and I was
Yeah.
looking at it. I'm like, look at Kyle.
Yeah.
Musicking.
Yeah, and it
Good for you.
Terrifying, absolutely terrifying. Because
Yeah.
The first time I posted something, me playing the trumpet on the internet, I was also I got an adrenaline rush. I'm
Yeah.
post.
Well, the first time I lost 6 followers, and I was like, oh shoot, you know what I mean? It's
That's actually really. There's no way that's correlated, right?
well, I mean, when you sign up for race car motorsports guy, then you get
yeah, that's fair. I
you know?
definitely have I would love to have a personal voice online, and
Yeah.
I feel like I just keep my voice pretty
Yeah.
specific to the reason I'm online,
Right.
which is race car stuff.
yeah. But I want to be me stuff. Right?
Yeah.
And so for a long time, me was race car stuff, and
My,
now it's
my
just
Facebook is me stuff.
Yeah.
And then Instagram, I guess, is now me stuff too. So I don't give a shit. But
Do you have any pressure from the now you're doing me stuff? If people see you doing the me stuff, they will think that you're either not working hard enough on your other stuff or something. I fight that sometimes. Oh, he's off screwing around. He's not working.
In what context? In the sim racing world?
If you post your singing, and I guess you wouldn't have this problem. Most people wouldn't have this problem anyway. But if you're posting your singing and you're adventuring or
Yeah.
something, and then
people are like, oh, he doesn't work at Grid Life anymore.
or he's not taking his job as seriously.
No,
maybe.
I think where Tom's coming from is like
Maintaining a quote unquote professional presence online.
Yeah,
or
yeah,
whatever,
that's-
I don't know.
yeah, that, but also like if you're chasing like the race car driver
Oh,
stuff, if you're not
I
like
didn't
on
even think about that, Tom.
I'm sorry. Oh no, I just did
you're-
the anxiety like
No.
and somebody
No,
else.
like how, I have to be professional Mr. Motorsports man, and now I can't. No, it's
Just don't sing any dirty songs with your guitar and your cat. I don't know.
and your cat. Do you ever get the cat to do a single note?
So the cat actually, you know what's fun is
The cat sings a
Well-
C sharp on average, so you just like incorporate that in there.
Apollo, the poor Apollo, like he realized very early on that like his bonding time, like where he gets to like hang out and be close to me was like when I was doing broadcasts, he'd like sit on my lap. And so I think he finds my voice like soothing.
Yeah.
And so he'll like come out of the woodwork and like come hang out with me when I'm like playing the guitar and stuff, which is like really fun.
Yeah.
Right. Like anytime that he'll be like screamy and panicky, like when I come home, he's like, "Where were you?" And then I like start doing a broadcast or I jump on the guitar and he's like, "Oh, there you are."
You're going to be here for a while. Okay.
Yeah. So it's kind of fun.
Okay, so we were talking about the sim racing stuff with like my most favorite thing that you ever did, and how we could get that to happen again. Kyle, do you think that could happen again?
I won't rule it out.
Okay,
I'd say give me a little while.
it would be a lot of organizing on my
Yeah.
end, trying to like track down all like the league owners and stuff like that. But it's something that I kind of want to do.
Yeah,
like this.
I'm more interested in like one-off events than I am in
Yeah, yeah.
seasons, right? Like when this NASCAR league I was working with, I love those guys. They're great. They were the most consistent of any group I've ever worked with. But they'd be like, all right, we have 3 races a week. We have 17-week seasons. Go.
Oh my God.
Precisely.
So it's just a big commitment.
It's a huge commitment.
Yeah.
And you have to do it. Right?
Yeah.
Like, and we got really good. I mean, over the last couple of years, I don't think we've missed one. Like we might have had a technical issue one time that Finian saved. But
You also have you have a taste of like what the real world and real rates and real workload and
Yeah.
all this is supposed to be like. So now that
and it's a distraction.
I was going to say, if you're doing this rote routine that's just distracting and you earn your $40 a night or whatever, that's good money. But also when you are used to getting paid for your professional rate at an SRO race, $40 a day is not a good rate.
Correct. But the other thing is like when you start doing the math of like I'm going to suffer financially from not doing it so much. Like I'll be fine.
Fair. Yeah.
But it's like it is a non-insignificant chunk of my take-home income at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
Like so that is gonna stink. But I'm hoping that like I can spool up, or I haven't asked. Well, this is getting probably too into the weeds. But my day rates at places I work, not at Grid Life, are not very much different from where they were in 2020, which it's like, there's other things that I do now that get tacked on top of that, but there's more juice to squeeze out of that, and I don't want to squeeze myself anymore.
Yeah.
So I should start squeezing other people.
I think everyone gets to that point eventually where they're like they start to understand their own worth.
Yeah.
And so then it's like, okay, hey guys, you guys know what I'm capable of. This is what I'm worth. And if you don't pay it, like somebody else will.
I just feel bad because, like, again, I'm a people person, right? I want to do it for my friends.
Yeah. And you want to please.
And I want to please.
Yeah.
And so, like, we always had, like, the buddy rate, for the longest time. And I still have the buddy rate, but the buddy rate's different than it was. But
You're charging us the actual rate because Tom was talking about that, right? You're charging us the actual rate.
yeah,
Sort of. No, I think we're probably still-
It's
yeah.
a little. Buddy
We're still
rate.
buddy?
Yeah, but like, it's also
We've been
because-
taking donations to pay for you, by the way.
Thanks, guys. It's also just like if my stuff doesn't like scale well with endurance racing. Like I think I did a 6-hour broadcast with, I think you were part of that for SRO a couple years ago, and I build it like the way that I would like linearly hourly, and I sent Robbie the bill, and he's like, "Oh man, we can't do that again." And I was like, "Okay." I felt bad putting that number on that sheet of paper too. So.
It is a little different when it's like a longer event because there's like prep. Like,
yeah, the prep work is a big piece. Of
yeah,
it.
like with my coaching, like I just charge for the prep work now because like I used to just do the prep work so I was prepared for the thing, but it was like I'm finding myself like cutting on prep, which is in turn hurting them because I'm not feeling like compensated for the prep.
Yeah.
So now I just include the prep work in my coaching rate, and then so now I feel obligated. Like I always charge a half-hour prep, so I spend 30 minutes getting as sufficient at whatever we're working on as possible so I can talk to it better.
Yeah.
Right. And since I've added that into my billing, I feel like my coaching is better.
Yeah.
Because I have to put in that prep work because I am charging them for it.
Right. It's like the things that are like little things that people don't think about. Like generally on Sim TV, like a lot of broadcast companies, when they upload a thumbnail for the live stream, it's like the same one, or it's like the same picture. Maybe they changed the name of the track on the whatever. But like generally, I will go in and like I will go take a screenshot, a new one every single time with the car that's racing at the track that they're racing on. And then put it in and then change the name, and I have the track map that I'll put on there too. Like,
but does that actually turn into more clicks? It probably doesn't.
But it's just like it looks better, and there's like effort put into it, and it's something that we've always done, and it just takes time. It doesn't take a lot of time, but like 15 minutes a thumbnail, times 6 a week or whatever. It's like, okay, now that's time now, right? And then that's only one thing. Then you got to talk about broadcast graphics, like if people are giving you new logos to put in every time, or like you're working through like a chase format and like NASCAR stuff, like you have to change the Excel sheets that like reference all the numbers and
right. So if it's like an event and it's a couple hours long, then it's the same work up front to get ready for the thing. But then once you're sitting down,
it's the same.
It's the same. It's just like the couple hours after.
Right.
So it makes me think that you should charge like this is what it takes me to sit down at the computer, and then here's my hourly rate after it.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's an interesting way to think about it.
Because that's why I added the prep.
Your new bill
fee
is
to it.
$14,500.
Guys, we're gonna need to sell a lot of stickers or get some donations.
Yeah.
By the way, that race is on January 4th. It's a team 4-hour endurance race using GT4 cars and iRacing. And if you'd like to join, you have to join our Discord for the race details. But there's a little plug.
Yeah, and you don't have to do it as a team. You can do the 4-hour race solo, like a little bit of an Ironman challenge.
Yeah.
There used to be this race that was broadcasted like back in like 2018-19, where it was like a 4.5-hour race on VAR Grand, and they would always like throw in these like really difficult to drive cars. And I would love to do that again at some point. And it wasn't team; it was solo. So it was 4.5 hours solo in these super hard to drive cars. And it was like I forget what it was called. It was I forgot what they called it.
Yeah.
But like that's something that I would really like to do, because I remember like 4.5 hours later taking off the VR goggles and being like a sweaty disaster and being like, I don't know where I placed, but I survived.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's kind of fun.
Yeah.
I like that idea.
Yeah.
I have one more question. I think we probably should wrap up for your finishing your drive. But you just started the podcast with Greg Creamer.
Yes.
And I realized on my drive up here, I forgot to listen to the second episode.
Yeah.
But it's pretty fun. I like what you guys are doing with the like context of motorsports perspectives from these two like icons of talking about motorsports.
I'm break your heart, but
Why?
carry on.
Carry on.
Carry on. Go ahead.
Is it canceled after the first season?
Tell me how much you love it.
I was going to ask you how it came about and if you were like what you're excited about with it.
So just
But I feel like we're about to get bad news.
No. The elephant in the room is that I told Greg I needed to like, as part of the thing, I needed to like step back from it for a little bit, even though we just started it. I agreed to do it like 6 or 7 months ago, like before all this other stuff happened.
Sure.
And it became one of those things where I was like, I really just don't want to do this right now. So it's a fun idea, and I think Greg and I get along really, really well.
Yeah.
I think we have a lot of really interesting conversation.
So is this the only season?
No, there's gonna be more. He's gonna get another co-host in the short term while I like recharge my computer batteries, because I just don't want to, like, I love Greg and I like want to do it, but I just can't like find the energy to sit down and
You
talk
feel like
about
it
racing.
will be forced, it won't be genuine.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I told him, and I like, Greg's great, but it's another time commitment thing that I didn't really anticipate like not having time for or not wanting to do, but I like agreed to it, and I was like, I got to do it now, and then it just so it was fun, but it's like I told Greg, I was like, give me a couple months to like.
You got to show me
know.
how you're doing your cameras.
What? Oh, what do you mean?
Where like they're in like their own like separate.
Oh, that was. This is an example of like why I didn't feel like I could keep doing it, is because like that was just recycled SimTV stuff, and like I really should build proper like eyes up like specific content to put the boxes in. But
having
I
video,
couldn't give it the energy it
dude. Having video adds like so much more complication. Like the video for this one, like I don't know. We're probably just gonna post a picture of like a selfie of us. Like
I took a picture of my food.
Nice.
I'm kidding. I didn't.
like hold on, maybe we should get the selfie right now, just so we can.
I'll scoot over
So
next to Tom.
I won't forget about it. Okay, the selfie's being taken. That's the thumbnail. That's literally the whole. That's the whole video.
So much easier.
Yeah,
So if we
well-
could do that, then maybe. Well, that's the other thing. Is like it just having to record it and like be responsible for the audio side. It's like. It's like a lot right now. I really like. I'll be honest. Like I'm in a mode right now where I want to come home from work And like, I love racing. It's a huge part of my life, but I don't want to think about racing anymore when I get home. And it's like, for a little while, I need that.
I wonder if
you know?
I'll ever get there.
Well, I think the
I don't think-
participatory.
I don't think about racing that much when I'm at work, though. So
Yeah, the participatory side is different, I think.
Yeah.
When you're like watching everyone else have fun, it's like not as fun, right? Like it is work.
are you? No. It's definitely different when you're watching people have fun. If anything, it kind of kills it a little bit.
I enjoy what I do, like as a job, but especially when you get to the winter, when it's like plotting and planning and rules and this and that and driver feedback, and it's like, and there's no actual racing to watch anymore. So like,
Yeah.
it's just all like the negative parts in the off season. And it's just like I don't want to I want to pick up my guitar. I want to make a really nice meal. I've been baking too. That's fun. Made croissants, crushed
Croissants?
them. Oh yeah, I was like, what's the hardest thing I can do?
The hardest thing.
Well, just like the most technically, like everyone's
Yeah,
like, oh,
yeah,
those
yeah.
are so hard, and I crushed them.
I wish Christine was here. She would have some feedback on.
So
croissants.
I had a friend come over.
Croissants.
I had a friend over that was there that tried one, like fresh out of the oven, right? And she was just in Paris last week, and she's like, "Your croissants were better than the ones I had in Paris." And I was like, "Dope."
I don't know how biased this feedback is.
No, well, yeah. I also cooked dinner that was supposedly better than dinners in
Yeah,
London and
yeah,
Paris. So
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
doing pretty good in the meal department right now.
Or she has terrible taste in restaurants in Paris.
But
We're
I
good with
don't
the
know.
first one. I
Yeah,
like it.
but
I like first one.
No, it's like when I get home, it's just like I for 7 years I've been turning on a computer and I just don't want to anymore.
Do you have interest in driving more,
I haven't touched my sim rig in.
or even in real life?
Yes, so I drove the FRS at pit race.
Do you put an oil cooler on it yet?
No,
Okay.
I put stock brakes back on it too. That's how uncommitted I was to driving for a while. And we had a red flag drill, and I realized real fast that those were stock brakes. But yeah, I do have an interest in driving a little bit more. I'm still afraid of breaking my car.
Yeah.
Which is just a natural thing I'm going to have to just deal with. I don't know how much I'm going to get to do it because obviously the big news last week was that Grid Life's doing less HPDE next year.
Yeah. So like, how do you even get on the racetrack?
Yeah, which I'm not super bummed about because I didn't take advantage of it when we had it.
Yeah. True.
But it is, like if I wanted to, it'd be harder now. I also don't think that, and this was one of the reasons is like there's just HPDE experiences that are like better bang for buck, and I would probably be better served by doing one of those.
Yep.
So that's something I've thought
also,
about.
working an event and then also trying to participate in it is it's very very tough.
Yeah, I mean, and we had a good setup for a while where HPD was like Sundays only, right? And so I would basically be done. But it's still like I could only do it at an event where I had my car, which wasn't that many of them. And then like my car wasn't really prepped for it, and I also like just didn't have the desire to. And then I got it on track at Pit Race. I was like, this is pretty fun. Like this is pretty cool, you know. And it kind of sparked my love for it again.
I would love to see Kyle driving more.
Yeah, I think you'll see a little bit more of that next year. I still have that Fiesta laying around. I have to do something with.
I forgot about that car.
I put tires on it 2 years ago, and they're still brand new.
Didn't you get like BC coilovers and stuff on it too?
It had them.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I didn't have them on it, but it had brand new in box in the car.
Yeah. Are they on the car yet?
They are. I put them on the car.
Yep,
I put
okay.
brand new RT660s on it. It's ready to go for Sunday Cup.
Yep.
If I don't use it in the first 3 months of 2025, it is getting sold to someone in Sunday Cup so that someone else can use it because it'd be a really good Sunday Cup car.
Cool.
It's honestly it's probably the nicest car I own.
The Fiesta is?
Yeah. So the funny thing about it is like it's like a 5-speed like standard Fiesta hatch, but it has like heated seats and like a power sunroof, and like my other cars don't have
That
those
should be your
things.
I
winter
know that. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
like
that
that's
should
kind
be-
of
I have a heated steering wheel, and I don't think I can go back now. I'm like
Yeah.
spoiled.
yeah. So I've thought about it, and it's also obviously a stick where like the Corolla isn't, and I really like driving stick, so I might bring that car out to be the winter beater again.
All right.
But-
Is there anything else you want to say before we wrap up the podcast?
I don't think so. I think this was fun. I think we touched on some topics.
I don't know how you talked as much as you did and ate a whole plate of raviolis. So that's
Did we talk about how multitasking was like kind of the thing?
I don't know how you did
Yeah.
that. The listeners are like, how in the hell did he do that? Like, that's literally what they're
He didn't have
doing
any
right
cameras
now.
to change around. He had all his hands free.
Yeah. What's the phrase about idle hands make devil's playground?
Yeah,
or something?
Kyle chewed the food with his hands and then he just slurped it real quick.
He has been eating it with his hands this whole time.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
No, I think this is fun because I've told a variant of this story in a couple different podcasts now, but not with the people that like actually like you guys realize that like you're why I'm here, right? like professionally.
I mean, we were a part of it, but I think somebody else would have been a part of it if we didn't do it.
Maybe, but like the butterfly effect again, like especially with with you and SRO Tom.
I think Finian has more to do with it than we do.
Well, he absolutely does. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I you know, I should get him on at some point too. But
I would love to talk to Finian because he had the opportunity to basically kind of have the same path as you did.
I told him.
And he didn't take that path.
And I told him, like, at the end of our college career, I was like, do you want to be like invested in this like as a company owner in the same way that I am, like as financially? Like, do you want to just do it like this? And he was like, I don't know that I have my path. I'm setting my path. This is a fun hobby.
Yeah.
But he had the opportunity to do what I'm doing right now.
He's a doctor now?
He works as an EMT in a firehouse.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. I knew he was doing something medically.
Yeah, but he had the same opportunity and he just didn't want to do it. And so I don't think he's missing out necessarily, but
I think we're good on dessert. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think he's enjoying himself. I think when I suggested slowing SimTV down, he was on board with it too. Similar place in life. So again, he's a huge part of my life still. We talk all the time. But yeah, it's just crazy. Like, I think back to where all of this started, and I can pinpoint like that moment, that race that we were watching in my college living room. Like,
wild.
It's crazy.
Is there any up-and-comer broadcasters that are getting their start on iRacing right now that you think deserve like a shot?
To be honest, I've never really had that big of a finger on the pulse of anybody else.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay, because
you know what I mean.
Like, I think it's just hard to find. Like, because me and Tom were searching around to do like a weekly league, and it was just we couldn't really find anything.
Yeah, basically, when I tell everyone I've got like Pit Stop TVs, my buddy Andrew Cardinale, or otherwise I send them to GSRC. It's like those are the only places that I know can put on a good, trustworthy broadcast that aren't a gazillion dollars.
Yeah.
I don't have my finger on the pulse of like the smaller orgs, and it's also hard for me now to look back at those and like it feels mean, but like it's hard to be like, oh, like I see hope in that because I didn't see hope in us.
Yeah,
we just
true.
ended up like you have no idea if they're going to stay the same forever, if they're going to pivot and build something great. We got really lucky that we got hit the pandemic at the right time. I invested in the right equipment. I invested my time in the graphics building, and we just hit the lucky.
It hit
path,
your lizard
right?
brain just right, where you're like, I'm gonna dive an unreasonable amount of time into this.
Yeah. And so because of that, I mean, I have now announced international motorsports racing events and get to work every day at an organization that is keeping grassroots motorsports alive and presenting it at a high level. I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful to be doing what I'm doing. And sometimes at Grid Life, it's like I don't actually know what I do, but it's pretty cool. Like, So
Yeah.
it's been a wild ride.
Well, Kyle, thank you for coming on.
Been awesome to catch up. Do you know how you remember the outro? Because you're going to do it.
Oh no.
It's I love your hair. I hope you win.
Oh,
There's
right.
a specific pause
You gotta
in
hit
the
it at the
outro
drop.
music. So it's I love your hair. Hope you win. As the music stops, I mute everything, and then the music continues. You ready? Do you want a preview of the
So it's going to start.
Okay.
You got to get a little bit of time to fill
Yep.
here. It's about 8 seconds.
blah blah
and then
blah? You'll say your
love your
goodbyes.
hair, and I hope you win.
I love your hair and I hope you win.
Oh, you were so close. No, that was your practice.
That was
though.
a practice. That was a
Does it make
practice.
sense now?
Yeah, no, but let's do it again.
Okay, we won't help you this time.
Okay, it's not
Kyle.
helping. The podcast is literally ending right now. Okay,
Thanks
it's your
for doing
outro.
this.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. Love your hair, and I hope you win.
Way early.
Dang it.